Cet appel, s'il vous plaît, Madame le greffier.
Monsieur le Sénateur Gorst.
Présent.
Monsieur le Sénateur Farnham. Madame le Sénateur Ferguson.
Présente.
Monsieur le Sénateur Lefondre.
Présent.
Madame le Sénateur Valois.
Present.
Madame le Sénateur Moore.
Present.
Monsieur le Sénateur Pallett.
Présent.
Monsieur le Sénateur Mezek.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Hélier.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Clément.
Présent.
Madame le Connétable de Madame le Connétable de Saint-Laurent.
Présente.
Madame le Connétable de Saint-Sauveur. Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Brelade. Monsieur le Connétable de Grouville.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Jean. Monsieur le Connétable de la Trinité.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Pierre.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Marie.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Ouen.
Présent.
Madame le Connétable de Saint-Martin.
Présente.
Madame le Député Martin.
Présente.
Monsieur le Député Southern. Madame le Député de Grouville.
Présente.
Monsieur le Député Lewis.
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Tadier.
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Higgins.
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Masson.
Présent.
Madame le Député Pinel.
Présente.
Monsieur le Député de Saint-Martin.
Présent.
Monsieur le Député de Saint-Ouen.
Présent.
Madame le Député Dublé. Monsieur le Député Labbé.
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Wickenden.
Présent.
Monsieur le Député de Saint-Marie.
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Truscott.
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Young.
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Ash.
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Morel.
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Guida.
Présent.
Monsieur le Député de Saint-Pierre.
Présent.
Monsieur le Député de la Trinité.
Présent.
Monsieur le Député de Saint-Jean.
Présent.
Madame le Député Lehegara.
Présente.
Monsieur le Député Ayer.
Présent.
Madame le Député Pershard. Monsieur le Député Ward.
Présent.
Madame le Député Alves. Monsieur le Député Pamplin.
Présent.
Madame le Député Gardner.
Présente.
Monsieur le doyen.
Notre aide soit au nom de Dieu qui a fait le ciel et la terre. Amen. Seigneur Dieu Père éternel et tout-puissant, qui a établi le gouvernement et la puissance de la terre, pour le règlement et pour la conduite du peuple, et qui nous a commandé d'avoir toujours pour but la gloire de ton saint nom. Nous te prions qu'il te plaise de donner à cette assemblée le don de conseil et de prudence, d'unir les cœurs et les affections de tous ceux qui la composent, de les conduire tellement toi-même par ton Saint-Esprit, que toute l'heure de délibération est accompagnée de la bénédiction. Réussisse au bien-être et au soulagement du peuple, qu'il de plus de commettre à leurs soins. Car nous t'en prions au nom et par les mérites de ton Fils bien-aimé Jésus-Christ, notre Seigneur, qui nous a enseigné de t'invoquer en disant: Notre Père, qui est aux cieux, ton nom soit sanctifié, ton règne vienne, ta volonté soit faite dans la terre comme au ciel. Donne-nous aujourd'hui notre pain quotidien, et nous pardonnons nos offenses, comme nous pardonnons à ceux qui nous ont offensés. Et ne nous envoie pas en tentation, mais délivre-nous du mal. Car à toi la reine, la puissance et la gloire, au siècle des siècles. Amen.
Madame le Connétable de Saint-Sauveur.
Présente.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Brelade.
Excusez.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Jean,
Excusez.
Monsieur le Deputy Southern,
Présent.
Madame le Deputy Dublay,
Present.
Madame le Deputy Pershard,
Excusez.
Madame le Deputy Alves.
Malade.
Vous jurez que Madame le Deputy Alves est tellement indisposée qu'elle ne peut pas assister aux États sans exposer sa santé. L'Assemblée est un nom, Monsieur le Président.
Les États sont constitués. On behalf of members, I'd like to welcome His Excellency, the Lieutenant Governor, to the virtual sitting of the Chamber this morning. Give notice I've been asked to consider the terms of the answer to written question 120, which I'll do hopefully over the lunch and adjournment, and give my view on it after lunch. I have been asked whether or not we are maintaining a minute's silence at noon today. I'm afraid I was unsighted on this, having heard passing reference to it on the radio this morning and was not otherwise aware of it. My understanding is that it is linked to the timing of lockdown in the United Kingdom, and therefore, as our timing of lockdown was different in this jurisdiction, I do not propose to mark it with a formal 1 minute silence. I've also been asked by the chair of PPC in connection with the timing of the questioning of the answers to written questions. As I understand, there is an element of confusion. It may assist members if I make the observation that Standing Order 12 relating to written replies to questions has not been altered by the changes made to the 3-weekly cycle. In essence, when a member considers an answer provided that is not directly relevant to the question asked and wishes for there to be a ruling, then the member should contact myself or, of course, the Deputy Bailiff before 12:45 on the day after which the answer has been given. In other words, the member has until 12:45 on the day after the answer is circulated to raise any concern with me, and it's not necessary and should not ordinarily be the case that it waits to the next meeting of the Assembly. I hope that's of assistance, but if further clarification is needed, I'm sure a query can be passed back through the chair of a PPC. That ends the item under A. There are a number of supported enactments under B, and a number of matters have been presented or laid as described on the consolidated order paper under C. The following propositions have been lodged under D. Draft income tax payment of 2019 liability Jersey regulations, P9, lodged by the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel. Draft income tax payment of 2019 liability regulations, Second Amendment, lodged by the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel. Social Security Tribunal appointment of Deputy Chair, lodged by the Minister of Social Security. Social Security Medical Appeal Tribunal appointment of Deputy Chair, lodged by the same Minister. Income Support Medical Appeal Tribunal appointment of Deputy Chair, lodged by the same Minister. Draft Road Traffic Number 66 Jersey Regulations, P15, lodged by the Minister for Infrastructure. Draft Intellectual Property Unregistered Rights Amendment, Disability and Rights and Performances Jersey Regulations, lodged by the Minister for External Relations and Financial Services, P16. Draft Constitution of the States and Public Elections Jersey Law, Privileged Procedures Committee, lodged by P17. And Transaction Understanding Order 1683, Office Accommodation Project Union Streets in Helier, deferral of approval, lodged by the Scrutiny Liaison Committee, that's P18. The Kennervay Park Flats Loan Scheme, P19, lodged by the Minister for Housing and Communities. Public Health and Safety Rented Dwellings, request for new licensing regulations, lodged by Deputy Ward, that is P20. Draft Public Holidays and Bank Holidays Amendment Number 3, Jersey Act, P21, lodged by the Chief Minister. Draft Eligibility for Election Amendment of Laws, P22, lodged by the Privileged and Procedures Committee. There is nothing under E, F, G and H, and under I, of course, answers to written questions have been tabled in the normal way. And we now come on to oral questions. And the first question will be asked by the Connétable of St. Peter to the Minister for the Environment. Connétable.
Thank you, sir. Question for the Minister for the Environment. Given that Jersey fishing boats, but not French fishing boats, operating in Jersey waters are currently prevented from landing whelks and scallops in France due to the rating placed on our Jersey waters, will the Minister advise what measures, if any, have been taken to resolve this? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. The EU has legislation that prevents the direct landing, i.e. those that are caught and landed, from a third country flagged fishing vessel, the products known as live bivalve molluscs. Under this legislation, whelks are included despite there not being bivalve molluscs. Any classification of waters is entirely separate, and this prohibition remains in place regardless. Jersey has not required any classification of our waters, and no official classification has been established, as it's the responsibility of the competent authority. I can report the work is underway now to establish this classification. Whelks and scallops can be exported to the EU with appropriate paperwork through the border inspection post. Whilst I fully acknowledge this is not as easy as direct landing that fishermen previously did, I and other ministers have helped to facilitate the route for ex-exporters. And what do? I and assistant ministers and officers talk to fishing industry representatives daily. I certainly don't underestimate the difficulties they are having as being the transition from the old regime from being part of the EU to being a third country following Brexit. And I will continue to work and doing so with the Minister of External Relations, with discussions with colleagues, UK, France and EU on a regular basis, if not daily, to improve the situation for local businesses that deal with France and the EU countries, acknowledging now the situation is entirely different. Now we are a third country. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary, Connétable Peter.
Yes, sir. Does the Minister agree that despite a licensing system and claims that rights to our waters have been returned to us, the French fishermen are now able to dominate our waters in certain areas, supported by their own authorities? Thank you, sir.
I agree. I think there's no question that the changes have been generally, I think, detrimental in terms of the, if you like, the effect that it's had being a third country between our fishermen and the French. We've got an enormous amount of paperwork, costs, disruption. But of course, that was a decision that we didn't make, but we've had to inherit it. But we do have the benefit, though. Once the 90 days clause has elapsed, we will. The plus point is that we will have sole responsibility for licensing in our waters, which was not the case before.
Thank you, Minister.
Councillor Ferguson.
Yes, why is the Minister not offering support, perhaps even a loan, to help set up a cooperative similar to Jersey Dairy to enable the fishermen to set up a cleaning and refrigeration plant in Jersey, which would not only help them with the French attitude, but would also help them in exporting elsewhere other than France?
I think thank you, sir. I think the Senator has a good question on the principle, because certainly there is a very strong case, and I'm working with the Economic Development Minister on the support we provide to the industry to help them make the transition. At the moment, that emphasis on immediate short-term support, but in the more medium to longer term, then I do agree there will be changes in practice which are possible, which will require shoreside infrastructure, probably the creation of our BIP, which is underway, and the whole infrastructure of doing that kind of arrangement. Now, I'm not so sure, because this is technical, whether it would work for whelks and bivalve scallops, because all of these particular species have a limited life when they are taken from the sea, and not all the species can be held alive and so on. So that's a technical matter. But nonetheless, the principle of what the Senator is saying, as far as those species where that can work, is something which is under investigation, and I think that I'm certainly looking forward. The ministers have agreed to following this support in principle. That work is going on to put that into practice.
Supplementary, please, sir.
Yes, Senator.
Perhaps the minister and his officers would like to look at what this. There's a very alive young gentleman, fisherman in Cornwall, who is using this sort of approach with refrigeration and cleaning, and he's shipping all over the UK. Perhaps, you know, we ought to be not just thinking about it, but actually looking at people who are doing it and making it work.
Thank you, Senator. Look, I think there are lots of responses that are being tried out to try and find ways, because Jersey is not the only place in the British Isles that's had these disruptions. But I certainly have listened to the reports of the fishermen in the southwest that take species such as this from the sea, and their concerns about the journey time, the lag time. Basically, the species don't survive that long, and certainly depuration, I know, does not work for certain species of mollusks. So I think these things all need to be looked at in practice, because there's no point in, at the moment, our produce taken from the sea is super fresh. The irony of this is that all of those techniques are probably going to result in some changes to the potentially to the quality, which obviously nobody wants to have. So there's a lot of work to be done, sir. Thank you
very much. Deputy Tallien.
So what would the consequence be if the minister decided to suggest that Jersey should withdraw from the Bay of Granville agreement until such a time as a level playing field was allowed for whelks and scallops, etc., being landed on the French side, which are being fished in Jersey waters, irrespective of who they have been fished by?
Minister.
Thank you. So, this has been proposed by our fishermen as a kind of a retaliatory action. I've resisted that, but the consequences of cancelling the TECA, which incidentally it got nothing to do with the situation I've just been answering on, because that occurs as a third country. But the consequences of the TECA being withdrawn, the situation that I described would carry on. The disadvantages would be is that the Granville Bay agreement would come back, so we would lose control of our fisheries. Where that is pretty well the only gain, really. And the other thing is that the fishermen would have to pay tariffs, money tariffs, on any products exported to the UK. Of course, that takes no consequences of the effect on the whole island in terms of goods, and I'm sure other ministers will be able to talk about that.
So what if the minister sought to actually redefine the agreement and say that actually, or just to say that only Jersey boats can fish in Jersey waters?
Thanks, sir. Well, yes, we do have the power now to license French boats, but it's been agreed. Firstly, we've got 2 dates where, if you like, when that can be put into effect. Firstly, the 90-day clause. Because both sides have a unilateral right to cancel in the 90 days, and as ministers we did not want to do that. Secondly, an amnesty was agreed expiring at the end of April. That was a voluntary amnesty agreed with between the External Relations Minister, myself, and the EU Commissioner. But after that, I'm very, very clear, we will be enforcing and setting the rules, but the agreement provides that has to be non-discriminatory. That means we can't set rules that pick off and unfairly affect EU vessels compared with ours. So it's to be equal, and it's got to be based on the science. The science work is in progress, so I'm hopeful there will be better days ahead. But at the moment, there's no question there is a major disruption.
Very well, I have Deputy Morell, then a final supplementary, and no more on this one. Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. In his answer, the minister mentioned the setting up of, he said, our BIP, and I understood that to mean biological inspection post. Would the minister please clarify to the Assembly whether he is referring to the setting up of biological inspection post in Jersey, and if so, what cost does he see that this entails? Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. It is, as you remember when we spoke about this previously, it is a requirement that Jersey has a border inspection post, and it is the intention to have that post for an inspection of live animals and live species. And of course, that work has been taken on board with the Environment Department, and we passed a whole suite of legislation towards the end of last year to do that. But the physical logistics of that are not in place. There is a question that has been put to me, which is I'll mention it, but as whether or not we should have in place an arrangement that requires EU vessels extracting the same produce from our waters to be landed in Jersey and returned and dealt with through the proper paperwork route. That's something which I think has been mentioned to me. So, but no question, there will be quite a lot of it. Matters that will require us to have that border inspection in place. At the moment, we're in a transition. That setup won't be there for a while. Monies were provided. What's the cost? Monies were provided in the government plan and have now in the process of being released to the environment team. And the deputy will remember there were several £1 million of costs involved as a result of the third country move.
Supplementary, Deputy?
Yes, please, sir. The Minister mentioned that it will be some while. Is he able to give us a clearer timeframe on when that border inspection post will be complete?
Well, it won't be a permanent border inspection post because at the moment it's not possible to size it because as I'm sure the Deputy will understand, the situation is very fluid, changing by the moment. But nonetheless, the temporary border post will be in place certainly within 6 months. That was agreed as part of the transition, and that temporary border post obviously will be replaced with a more substantive setup, probably on the port. When things become a little clearer, certainly, but it would be for this year.
Supplementary, Colin St. Peter.
Sorry, sir, just no final supplementary, sir.
Thank you very much. We come to question 2 that Deputy Higgins will ask to the Chief Minister. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself. Given that the Wiltshire Police Investigation Report is currently accessible on the gov.je website, will the Chief Minister also agree to publish on the same website the response of the former Chief Officer of the States of Jersey Police, Graham Power, to the criticisms of him contained within that report? And if not, why not?
Chief Minister.
Yes, thank you, sir. So the difficulty is that the government website or the gov.je website should only include, or to date, should only include government commission reports on it. And because Mr. Power's response is not an official report to date, it would not be appropriate for it to be included. However, sir, I note that the response of Mr. Power to the Wiltshire Police Report has already been put into the public domain through the Independent Jersey Care Inquiry. And it did strike me, sir, that it would be appropriate for a link to the Independent Jersey Care Inquiry site should be on the gov.je website. And frankly, sir, I was surprised that that did not seem to be the case. And that will be, I understand, sir, rectified and a link put in place later today at my specific request. Separately, sir, and without getting involved into individual issues, it also has struck me that it might be appropriate to consider whether there should be a policy in place to deal with circumstances where employees or former employees feel that they need, for want of a better expression, a right to reply. And so without making any promises whatsoever to the outcome, I'm very happy to take that, and I think it's to the SEB, so to consider. I may absolutely reiterate, make no promises, but because I suspect there'll be a whole variety of practical difficulties, but equally, sir, it would seem appropriate for a proper policy to be in place, sir. Thank you.
Supplementary.
Yes.
Thank you. Anyone who watched the BBC Storyville programme, $1 Trillion Island Garren, now knows, if they didn't know before, that the suspension of the former chief officer was an act of political vindictiveness on the part of the Jersey establishment of the day. And because they couldn't get their original target, Lenny Harper. What has happened here is a travesty. And Mr. Power was
I'm sorry, Deputy, there must be a question. This is a chance for a supplemental question, not for a speech in the Assembly as to your views. So please, could you focus on a question?
Yes, sir, the question is coming.
Come quickly, please.
It is an injustice that has been done. I think what the Chief Minister has said is a step in the right direction, but it does not exclude the fact it should be on the state thing. He was a public employee at the time. His answer was given at the time. Will the Chief Minister agree to put it on the website?
Sir, I can see a point of order, sir.
Point of order, Deputy Morell.
No, thank you, sir. I withdraw it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much indeed. Yes, Chief Minister, that's supplementary.
Sorry, sir. I'm glad the Deputy thinks it's considered a step forward. That was the obviously intention. So when the conclusion when I was thinking this through over the last couple of days is that I think without going into individual cases, what we need is a clear policy on the matter, sir. I'm unaware that there's one in place at the moment. If not, perhaps it's appropriate for it to be re-looked at. And what I'll do, sir, what I will commit to, sir, absolutely, is that we will look at that policy in the round and then and see if A, if there is a policy, B, if there isn't, what it should be, if there is, whether it needs updating, and then sir, I'll revert to the Assembly on that basis. But I think what we've got to make sure, sir, bear in mind, I accept I understand the Deputy's view that this is a very specific circumstance, but equally there will be incidents where individuals feel aggrieved in various circumstances without going to the merits of any particular case, and therefore demand a right of reply, essentially. And so I can see that becoming exceptionally complicated. But as I said, to me, having a policy in place on that matter would be the way, perhaps, of trying to work our way through this particular difficulty. And I'm very happy, sir, to commit to getting a policy in place, or at least updating one if there is one in place, sir.
Well, I have Senator Moore, Deputy Tadier, Senator Mezek, Deputy Ward and Deputy Pamplin wishing to ask questions. I won't be taking any further questions other than those. That will certainly.
Can I ask a point of order?
Yes, Deputy Tadier, but is this not you have the right to ask a question as well, I've said.
Yes, it's separate to that, sir.
Right.
So can I just check who was the Attorney General at the time of the Wiltshire report?
At the time of the Wiltshire report, I think I might have been the Attorney General at the time.
Okay, sir. Is it appropriate? I don't mean this disrespectfully. Is it appropriate for you to be taking these?
All I'm doing is ensuring that a sufficient time is allocated for each question. You will see the question has already been allowed. I'm allocating the appropriate time for the question, which I've allocated approximately 6 minutes for each question. The number of individuals who've already indicated a desire to ask questions have already pushed us past what inevitably will be that proper allocation. And I'm conscious of the fact that the Chief Minister is also, of course, facing questions without notice. And if anything arises and further people wish to ask questions, the opportunity will be there for them. I don't think, given the duties I'm discharging at the moment, that causes me any difficulty. It's not a debate upon the substance of any particular matter.
So it is slightly problematic. I did notice that you were hesitant about whether or not Deputy Higgins was making a political speech or just contextualising his question, which is what I thought he was doing. And I think those are tough decisions to call for maybe someone who was around at the time.
Well, thank you for the observation, Deputy, and I understand the spirit in which it is made. However, my concern about Deputy Higgins's supplementary question lay in the length of it, given that I've allowed 6 minutes nominally for each question. And it was the length of that that caused me to be concerned that it was veering towards a speech. It was not the content of what was being said, it was the length of the statements leading up to an eventual question. But I appreciate what you say, but I'm afraid it's impractical to make any different arrangements at this point. So we have to proceed with this question. Senator Moore.
Thank you, sir. Given the comments made in the Chief Minister's previous two answers, would the Chief Minister agree that the policy might be more easily affected if he were to accelerate the moves towards the setting up of a public sector ombudsman who might be able to deal with this matter?
So the Ombudsman, on the basis there that the issue on the Ombudsman is also to deal, allow us, for example, to bring in health matters, which was not previously the case. It's the usual thing about resource. If the Senator considers that this is of such criticality that we accelerate the Ombudsman forward, I have no issues with that, but something obviously has to give in its place. But obviously, sir, the law in relation to the Ombudsman will be with this Assembly before the elections, i.e. it will be the Assembly that sets it up, sir.
Thank you very much. Supplementary, Senator?
No, thank you, sir.
Deputy Taddier, your question.
Thank you, sir. Given that the Chief Minister said he was prepared to put a link to the Committee of Inquiry, would he actually put a link up to the section of the Committee of Inquiry report which takes the internet user directly to Graham Power's statement?
As I said, sir, the point was that it was a step forward because the link, obviously, to the official inquiry is absolutely appropriate. I think there is a risk, and I just emphasise a risk of then it becoming about an individual rather than about the transparency and the inquiry, which takes us back to the issue of the policy. So I think, sir, let's get the link in place. I was surprised that there wasn't one there. It was not that we could find anyway. That's a step forward. And then, sir, I will undertake, sir, that we'll consider that in the consideration of any policy, and then see what the views are, sir.
So may I have a supplementary?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. It seems to me that the context is of the website and the juxtapositioning is critical, because if you have the Wiltshire report being published and then a link to the Committee of Inquiry somewhere separate, which wouldn't automatically take anyone to the response, it seems irrelevant. So would the Chief Minister give serious consideration to actually making it user-friendly so that somebody who's studying the Wiltshire report and all the context around it can find the subsequent response easily if they want to?
So I've asked for the link to be in at least two places, one of which is connected with the Wiltshire Inquiry, and the other one says if you're doing a search, hopefully on the inquiry as a whole, you'll pick up the link to the website. So, sir, slightly ahead of the deputy on that one, i.e. the link should be in two places on the website, sir.
Senator Bezic.
Thank you, sir. Deputy Higgins made clear that his question arises out of having watched the Storyville documentary on BBC4 last week. Could the Chief Minister therefore inform the Assembly whether or not he has watched that documentary and whether it assisted him in coming to any view or learning any lessons as a result of what it revealed about the Wiltshire investigation?
So, as I've maintained a number of times, my priorities at the moment are dealing with the pandemic, etc. The Storyville is on my recommended viewing for this weekend, sir, when I hope it'll be slightly quieter than the previous 2 weekends.
Supplemental, Secretary? Senator, I apologise.
No, thank you, sir. That's fine.
Thank you very much. Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. My questions have sort of been asked there. I just asked the Chief Minister whether he has a general comment to make on the Wiltshire report and any learning that has come from it. So thank you.
No, so I'm not going to be drawn into making general comments around reports that are obviously from some years ago, sir. As I said, we've got the government position on the recommendations out of the inquiry. There's lots of work, as the deputy should be aware of, continuing to improve things like children's services, etc. as a result. And sir, I don't think I have any other comment to make other than that, sir.
Supplementary, Deputy Ward?
No, thank you, sir.
Deputy Campion?
Thank you, sir. Good morning. Will the Chief Minister outline in further to his original answer to Deputy Higgins' first question, that part of that review will look at any outstanding apologies that may be needed to any former current members of staff under the states of Jersey who are owed an apology due to an upheld complaint, and then those apologies are there in the public domain. Thank you.
So I think actually that would be. Sorry, it's quite a little bit in the background noise there. Seems to be crackling of cutlery as far as I can tell. So whoever's having their coffee perhaps could mute their mic. So the deputy's observations, I think, probably fall under the either the policies or perhaps even the ombudsman territory, and I think that would be the appropriate place for that to be considered, sir.
Supplementary, Deputy Panton?
No, thank you, sir.
Final supplementary, Deputy Higgins.
Yes, thank you, sir. Considering the injustice that has been to Mr. Power, will the Chief Minister give us an indication of how soon he thinks this link could be established, and will he also please see whether he can get it put on the official website as well?
Chief Minister?
So my understanding in terms of the link I referred to, it should be hopefully today, sir. Certainly that's what I've asked for, and unless there's any technical issues about that, I've been informed that is possible for today. And I'm not quite too sure the other part of the question, but no doubt the Deputy will raise that with me separately, sir.
Very well. We come to question number 3 that Senator Messick will ask of the Attorney General. Senator.
Thank you, sir. Will the Attorney General advise how many cases involving a breach of the residential tenancy law, including for non-compliance with the deposit protection scheme, or a breach of minimum standards rules for residential dwellings, have been referred to the Law Officers Department by Environmental Health, and how many such cases have subsequently led to a successful prosecution?
No.
Yes, sir. The Law Officers Department has been notified of 8 cases involving potential breaches of the residential tenancy law, and those include cases concerning the deposit protection scheme. So 2 of these cases are ongoing. One case was dealt with via a written caution at a parish royal inquiry, and 5 cases were not prosecuted in accordance with the application of the code on the decision to prosecute, and those were for a range of reasons. In one case, the company involved no longer existed. In one case, the overcharging of electricity was the responsibility of the agent and was stopped. And in another case, the overcharging was stopped and the tenants were repaid. And then in 2 cases, the deposit monies were paid into the deposit protection scheme. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary, Senator?
Yes, and I'm very concerned by what I've just heard, where it sounds like you can break the law, but as long as you say sorry and try to unbreak the law, that a prosecution won't be followed through with, even though you have actually broken the law. And since that's something that's not publicised until I ask a question about it, won't be revealed to the public that this sort of thing is going on. So the question to the Attorney General is that if that's the approach that's going to be adopted, doesn't it really render the laws that are in place rather pointless?
So the law does, in fact, in the 2016 order, there is a defence that's available in relation to overcharging of services supplied, and that is where that the reseller recognises that the excess has been charged in error, and then as refunds as soon as possible after the reseller becomes aware of the error. So the law doesn't actually include a defence in those circumstances. So we have to prosecute cases in accordance with the code, and where there's not a realistic prospect of a conviction, then it's not open to my department to prosecute those cases.
Have you?
Thank you, sir. The Attorney General talked about where the overcharging occurred in error. We've had 2 admissions this week from 2 people who did say they overcharged, but they said that it wasn't done in error. It was done in full cognizance, but in order to recoup the costs of the machines. Does the Attorney General accept those are 2 different things, and that can't be reasonably interpreted to be in error?
Well, so the facts of those specific cases, it's a little bit difficult for me to comment on in this assembly, but the key point is that there's been an acceptance and that it's not open to charge for services supplied in the way that was done. And as soon as it was realised that this was pointed out to them, then that has been stopped and corrected. And in those circumstances, so there isn't a reasonable prospect of conviction.
Okay, so I'm just trying to understand, because I was contacted by a constituent who reasonably asked me how this is different, for example, to a cannabis charge, where somebody says, OK, I made an error, I shouldn't have been buying and selling cannabis, and I only sold the cannabis in order to cover my own costs as a medicinal user. I'd find it hard to believe that the prosecutor would then say, oh, well, you did it in error and you're not going to do it again, therefore we won't charge you. It's not in the public interest. Is there a difference there? I'm sure there is, but could the Attorney General clarify what the policy is on applying this approach across the board?
Well, so yes, there is a difference, and it's one that I've already said, which is that the law does include a defence for where someone accepts that it was done in error and they correct what they've done. In relation to the smoking of cannabis, there isn't that sort of defence. We have, for example, though, in relation to possession of cannabis offences, there is scope for them to be dealt with not through courts in certain limited circumstances, which are set out in guidelines which are available on the law officer's page of the website. So for small amounts of cannabis, and if it's a first-time offence, if a person admits to undergo assistance and counselling with the Alcohol and Drug Service, then that can not be dealt with by way of charging. So there is an exemption or a difference of hope in those circumstances.
I have supplementary questions to be asked by Deputy Higgins, Deputy Southern, then a final supplementary. I haven't got time to allow more than that. Deputy Higgins.
Thank you, sir. Would the Attorney General say, what is the difficulty of prosecuting someone who's admitted the offence? It's quite easy then to prosecute. Surely the mitigation comes to the court to decide whether that's adequate or not, rather than the Attorney General.
Well, sir, I think I've already answered this question in that where the law provides a defence, where someone accepts that it's an error, they stop doing it, and then they will recompense the people, the tenants that have suffered. So the law accepts that there is a defence. So in those circumstances, there isn't a reasonable prospect of a conviction.
Supplementary, Deputy Higgins.
I'm still puzzled, sir. If someone's already pleaded guilty to the offence.
Well, I'm not sure there's a plea of guilty in any sense posited in the question, but do you wish a supplementary? No? Deputy Southern.
Thank you, sir. Does the Attorney General consider that there's any role for deterrence in what we're dealing with here, and that people should know that people have been are being investigated and have been prosecuted where appropriate?
Well, I'm grateful for the Deputy's question, because obviously if we come across a case which does meet the code, we will prosecute it. There was one case that was dealt with just for specific reasons unique to that particular case,
it was dealt with by way of a parish law inquiry, which is still a criminal process or a criminal justice process. But certainly, yes, if we come across cases that meet the code, then they will be prosecuted.
Supplemental, Deputy? No? Final supplementary, Senator Mezey.
Thanks. So the Attorney General referred to a case where a deposit hadn't been paid into the protection scheme, but later on it was. Does the Attorney General consider that in that instance that shows the law on protecting deposits to really be futile if you can break the law, but then once and only once a complaint or issue is raised as a result of it, you then put it in the protection scheme, that you'll be completely let off by it? And does he not share my concern that that could lead to a situation where deposits are routinely not protected on the basis that nothing needs to be done about it until there's a complaint, and then you can just get away with it?
I do understand and appreciate the Deputy's concern. These cases, we have to make decisions on the circumstances and the facts of each particular case, and also of what we can actually prove in court. I do repeat that where we come across a case that does meet the criteria set out in the code, we will prosecute it. But I hope members will understand that we can't just prosecute cases that don't meet the code tests, because that we can't put defendants through the stress and trauma of a court process if we don't think the case meets the tests set out in the code of a realistic prospect of a conviction. But where we do come across cases where an individual or company is not acting in accordance with the law set out in relation to tenants' deposits, then if we can prove the case, then and if there's a realistic prospect of a conviction, then we will prosecute.
Well, we come to question 4. The Deputy Pamplin will ask the Chief Minister. Deputy Pamplin.
Thank you, sir. Given the recently published HR Lounge follow-up report into staff bullying and conditions, will the Chief Minister advise what measures the government, bless you, intends to introduce to make improvements to the States of Jersey employees?
So the Conatable St Juan is taking this question, sir.
Thank you, sir. And I thank the Deputy for his question. So whilst I was pleased to see the progress made since the last HR Lounge report and that improvements we introduced have been recognised, nevertheless, we recognise that this is a long journey and we still have much work to do. We're fully committed to implementing in full the original recommendations, of which 22 have already been completed. Going forward, we are committed to dealing with the issues raised in the current report and implementing the rest of the recommendations, as well as addressing the problem areas highlighted in this latest report. The report gives credit to the use of the helpline, case management, and early resolution measures implemented, supported by a new policy and management training. In addition, yesterday, States members had the opportunity to understand the wider people strategy, which will go a long way towards providing more support to employees when raising complaints and addressing poor behaviour. Additionally, we have already started a management training programme that will set the standard for management style and culture, and we also continue to be fully committed to the Team Jersey programme, the value of which was recognised in this latest report. Sorry, thank you, sir.
Supplementary, Deputy Pamplin.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Conatable for his answer. Added to the effects of the last year, what additional support will be put in place for all members of staff across the civil service in the States of Jersey who've gone above and beyond for this island during the pandemic, as well as what support additionally with their mental health will be offered? Thank you.
So I thank the Deputy for his question. We have a wide range of support through the workplace through our occupational health services, regular communication and mental health first aiders. And we are currently reviewing additional support in the form of buddies, as mentioned in the HR Lounge report. So there is a wide range of support for staff members who are having mental health issues. And we believe we're continuing to review that in the light of the pandemic and the additional strain that's been placed on our staff with the additional work they've had to do.
Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. Can I ask the Assistant Chief Minister, does he agree that one of the ways in which to ensure that staff are confident if bullying is happening is to have union representation that is supported by the SEB, including facilities time and regular meetings, so that unions are seen as that important key support mechanism in the workplace?
Yeah, I thank the Deputy for his question, and I completely agree with him. And we have put in place a number of measures to engage with our union colleagues. And indeed, I particularly reached out and engaged with one union member from a teaching union who has made some specific comments and recommendations in relation to the HR Lounge report, which when we value the contribution that we will get from that. But yes, I completely agree with the Deputy, and we hope that the unions feel their relationship with us has improved substantially in the last year or so.
Supplementary, sir?
Yes, Deputy.
Can I ask the Assistant Chief Minister whether he believes that there is adequate facilities time across the trade union representation, so that staff do know that they can be supported, and also unions can play a constructive role in building relations?
Yeah, I thank the Deputy for his question, and knowing him as well as I do, I suspect there's a reason behind asking it. We would like to think that there's adequate facilities time, but if he wants to address any specific concerns he has about that with me, I give him my assurance that I will look into it and get back to him.
Thank you, sir.
Well, I have a question from Senator Ferguson, then Senator Valois, then final supplementary. Senator Ferguson.
Thank you, sir. Given that much of the problems that have arisen over bullying and so on arise from the examples set by senior staff, and the fact that the registers of complaints and so on have only been held within departments. Will the Assistant Minister explain how far they have got with getting a decent complaint system together with a central register which is reviewed by the chief officer and not just left to each department where it can be buried?
Yeah, I thank the Centre for a question. It's my understanding that our complaints register is centralised in the complaints management unit, as a central unit, and it is reviewed regularly. But I'm not 100% certain about that, so I will clarify that point and get back to her on it. But that is my understanding.
Thank you.
Very much. Senator Valois.
Yes, thank you, sir. In the follow-up HR Lounge report, one of the recommendations that hadn't been undertaken was a review of how staff promotions occur. Would the Constable be able to give an indication of when that will happen, and whether consideration of how that happens in terms of staff promotions has an effect on both P59s and also the use of consultants within the states?
Yes, I thank the Senator for her challenging question. As to the first part, yes, we're intending to implement the following recommendations as quickly as we possibly can, given staff constraints. And as to the second part of that question, I think I'd like a little bit of time to consider it and get back to her with a more detailed response, which I will share with the rest of the Assembly.
Supplementary, Senator Valois?
No supplementary, sir, but thank the Constable for his answer.
Final supplementary, Deputy Panley.
Thank you, sir. If you read the report, the tone is very clear that there was an issue of culture of toxicity from the very top. So my supplementary question is, there is a change of leadership happening at the moment. What is happening right now to deal with these issues that we can change the culture and the toxicity to make people feel like they can come forward with their complaints?
Yes, I thank the Deputy for his question. If I just take a step back, one of the comments made to us when the report was presented to us was that, generally speaking, staff have much more confidence in our ability to deal with complaints, and that the management culture is that we're taking these issues seriously. But having said that, I do accept that the report made it quite clear that there is an issue with senior management, and that's an issue that I intend to tackle with the new chief executive within the next week or so, to look at further measures to improve the culture amongst his senior team.
Very well. Come now to question 5. That Deputy Doublé will ask the Minister for Home Affairs. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. What steps has the Minister taken since 2018 to work towards eradicating male violence against women and girls? And what plans does he have for any new measures before the 2022 election?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Since becoming Minister for Home Affairs in 2018, one of my highest priorities has been to bring in a domestic abuse law for Jersey. Late last year, I issued law drafting instructions to commence this vital piece of legislation, and I fully expect to bring this before the Assembly towards the end of this year. It is my intention that this is a flagship piece of legislation that provides the strongest possible protection for victims of domestic abuse. The law will recognise that domestic abuse is a specific offence more complex and more damaging than simple violence. It will recognise controlling and coercive behaviour as an offence, and will allow for the creation of a domestic abuse register similar to the sex offenders register to manage repeat and serious perpetrators and ensure that potential partners of such offenders are protected. I have also ensured that we have capital funding for new premises for the Sexual Assault Referral Centre for adults and a child's house for children who are victims of sexual abuse. I have also secured significant investment in the Domestic Abuse Service as well as the SARC, which allows for the provision of dedicated support to victims. We now have numerous campaigns that are run throughout the year to promote awareness and understanding of domestic abuse, rape and sexual assault, including high-profile campaign regarding consent. Of course, all of this is designed to benefit and support all victims of crime, regardless of their gender. But we know that women are statistically more likely to be victims of domestic abuse and sexual assault, and it is my hope that these actions will provide greater protection for women and girls. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary, please, sir.
Yes.
Thank you. I thank the Minister for his answers. Could the Minister please give his comments on the possibility of a cross-departmental strategy on violence against women and girls, which he has answered a written question from me about, and there isn't one at the moment. Is that something he could commit to? And also I would like him to commit to reconsidering not adding sex as a protected characteristic in the hate crime law, please. And doing this would have the effect of making misogyny and misandry a hate crime. So could he comment on those two strategies or laws, please, that I feel he should be doing?
Yes, thanks, sir. I couldn't agree with the Deputy more on the first point, because in all areas of criminality, enforcement is not the only solution. There's got to be education, there's got to be understanding, there's got to be community involvement to understand what the causes of these issues are. So I do agree that we need to have cross-agency structures to enable us to improve the situation, not just in this area, but all areas of criminality. Well, clearly, this is extremely important. On the area of the prejudice law, I don't like to call it the hate law. In some jurisdictions, gender is a protected characteristic. In others, it isn't. It is something which is still under consideration. We will be lodging the prejudice law and the consultation very shortly. It does not include at this stage gender as a protected characteristic, but that is still open for debate. And even when the law is lodged, it will still be open for amendment. I know it's something we will be discussing even further, as we already have done, with our scrutiny panel, sir. I wish the Deputy is a member.
Thank you very much, Minister. Now I have questions lodged from Deputy Lehegara, Deputy Gardner, Deputy Ward, Deputy Pamplin, Deputy Tadier, and then the final supplementary. can't take any more than that, and obviously that will be pushing very much the envelope of allocated nominally to any question. Deputy Heggarall.
Thank you, sir. 90% of young women have experienced sexual harassment in public places in the UK. How will he find out what the numbers are in Jersey?
Thank you, sir. I mean, this is difficult. The only way it can be carried out is with a survey. But I know the States of Jersey Police and our other agencies are concerned that women, girls should feel safe in Jersey. And let's be honest, Jersey is a safe place, but incidents can occur. And I think when ladies, women, girls feel uncomfortable, feel that they're being subject to inappropriate behaviour, they should not resist. They should call in the police to explain their concerns and get the protection that they need. The police will be waiting for their call, sir.
No, thank you, sir.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. And the follow-up, Deputy Haggarad, actually question. Only 4 women told in a recent survey that was published on the 10th of March that only 4% reported the incidents of harassment to the official organization, with 45% of women saying they didn't believe reporting would change anything. What Minister would suggest can be done to ensure that our public spaces are safe or safer?
So I don't quite understand why people should not wish to report incidents of sexual assault. In fact, you know, they must report them, but because the more information the police have, the more arrests the police are able to make, the less chances of these offences taking place. You know, if the police do need the cooperation of victims as well as the high-profile policing that we now have, particularly in the town area. So I would urge victims of assault or inappropriate behaviour to make, and I repeated it as I said the earlier question, must report these incidents to the States of Jersey Police, sir.
Supplementary, sir?
Yes, Deputy.
As the UK coming out from the lockdown, the owners and administrators of public spaces asked to implement solution to make public spaces safer. There are around 150 solutions offered by UN Women UK. If Minister or his department aware about the solutions, and if yes, what actions plan to be taken by the government in Jersey?
I am not aware of them, but if the deputy would pass them to me, I'm sure that the States of Jersey Police are, but if the deputy would pass them to me, I would be happy to study them and share them with the enforcement agencies, sir.
Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. So the Discrimination Jersey Law 2013 states that a person who also harasses the subject, if the person engages in unwanted conduct of a sexual nature. So I was asked about these laws by a constituent, a young woman who has seen sexual harassment in Jersey when she's been here and has not reported it. And when she did actually report it, sir, it was not acted upon. Does the Minister believe that the laws that actually exist now should be better enforced, and that women in particular need more support in order to feel that reporting these actions will be taken seriously?
So I can assure the deputy that complaints of assault of the nature that he talks about will be taken very seriously. The police want to take them very seriously. The government has invested and is investing significant sums in, I've just mentioned in my preliminary answer, the sexual assault referral centre, where people who perhaps don't want to report to the police can get the counselling, the support and the advice that they need, but also if they do wish to involve the police, can be referred to that agency for the support that they need. My belief, and all the surveys tell us, that the vast majority of people have absolute confidence in the States of Jersey Police, as they should, And I repeat, and I can't repeat it often enough, that if you are the subject of sexual harassment, assault, or inappropriate behaviour, please report it, and you will be taken seriously. You will be listened to, and appropriate action where it's practical and possible will be taken.
Supplementary, Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. Can I ask the Minister, does he believe that there is a message to be sent out to men as a male minister and as male elected members of the Assembly that would be that these laws exist and they will be used if you sexually harass women? And what does the Minister say that that message should be, and would he give that message today?
The message is that these situations are taken very seriously. We saw only 2 or 3 years ago, and I pay tribute to my predecessor regarding the excellent sexual offences law we now have in place, and would draw attention to some of the prosecutions that have been able to be made, which could not have been made previously. I mentioned during my opening remarks the intention to have a similar quality domestic abuse law, which is not on our statute book at the moment, which will give women in the main greater protection and support. So the message is that the legislation is in place, the legislation is being strengthened all the time, and the police are there to support victims of crime, and particularly victims of sexual assault and inappropriate behaviour in that area, sir.
Thank you, sir. Returning to the original question, in steps taken by the Minister to work on this issue, can he outline any work about education with the charity Prison Me No Way in educating young people? And if not, what more can be done in that area?
Yeah, Prison Me No Way is being redefined. But what we've been aiming to do with the additional investment we put into the States of Jersey Police, we now have dedicated officers who are responsible for work within schools, and the education, they are part of the education system, part of the education curriculum, and are there to advise and guide young people in all areas of life. So that, I think, has been a very valuable improvement in the way that our police operate. So.
Does that include those officers or those team of people going into schools and sitting and working with schools and others to educate young people, young men, about this situation?
Sir, there are a myriad of things that the States of Jersey Police do to help educate our young people, and that is one of them.
Very well. Deputy Tanya.
Thanks, sir. I don't need to ask my question now.
Thank you. Final supplementary, Deputy Dublin.
Thank you, sir. I wonder if the Minister could actually forward the answer to the previous question about education, because I would like to know specifically what education is carried out in schools. But my final supplementary is on the issue of sex or gender, crimes motivated by hatred of someone's sex or gender. In the meantime, before the new law is in place, could the Minister look into crimes which are motivated by this being recorded by the police, as is being done by several police forces in England and Wales already, please?
Yes, of course, only B2 police to do so, sir.
Very well. We come to question 6. The Deputy Southern will ask the Chief Minister. Deputy Southern.
Thank you, sir, and apologise that this question has become common knowledge so far, but let's go anyway. Will the Chief Minister advise whether the state's members reported to have overcharged their tenants for electricity delivered through metered supply are members of the government?
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. It's a matter in the public domain, sir.
Supplementary, sir.
Yes, but that is a reasonable answer in the circumstances. If a matter is in the public domain, then the Minister doesn't need to go further than that. But do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I certainly do. Could the Minister, following his investigations around these cases, inform members what the total sums that were overcharged were and whether these sums have yet been repaid in full?
Sir, I don't have those details fully to hand, sir. I do know that in the I think both of the statements, sir, certainly one of them, those details are also in the public domain, sir. But if there's anything that's in relation to, sir, once the deputies looked at the statements from the two individuals, if there's anything missing there, sir, I'm sure if it is appropriate, sir, I can rectify the difference, sir. But I'm not entirely sure that it is actually a government matter, sir, other than to say both individuals, as has already been identified by the Attorney General, both made genuine errors, and that it is my understanding, sir, that the inspectors, when these errors were identified by the inspector, are satisfied as to the remedies that were taken, sir.
Chief Minister, I should make it clear that when Deputy Sutherland asked the question and lodged it, it was not of course a matter within the public domain. It has since become so. Senator Mesnick.
Thank you, sir. Given that these incidents were picked up through inspections of lodging houses, a regime which already exists but which doesn't exist for other types of residential tenancies, have these events convinced the Chief Minister that it is worth getting behind the efforts of his own Environment Minister in setting up a inspection regime for other private sector tenancies? So if these practices are existing in other parts of the rental market, they can be proactively picked up and stop tenants from inadvertently or otherwise getting ripped off.
I will allow that it is fairly tangential to the main question set. But yes, Chief Minister, I will allow that question if you wish to answer it.
So frankly, I've previously declared an interest in that area, and that's as far as I can see, that's going to be my stance going forward. I think the whole issue, sir, is not about regulation, sir. I think it's the appropriate level of regulation, and to, sir, jump on what appears to have been two genuine errors at a de minimis level does not necessarily, sir, seem to make the case. But equally, sir, there is nothing. So I think everybody supports appropriate regulation, but that is appropriate in both ways, sir.
Did you wish to supplement to that, Senator?
Yes, please. I mean, the last thing that Chief Minister said is just blatantly not true. Some do actively oppose regulation of any sort, and some of those are in his government, and some of those are people who have just been caught overcharging their tenants. So I'd like to ask the Chief Minister if the standard he wants to apply to himself in declaring interests and therefore not involving himself in future debates on this will be a standard that he will insist his own ministerial colleagues, including his assistant ministers, will have to apply to. Will he show that leadership?
So firstly, I think the Centre has somewhat misrepresented the views and positions of other members of the Assembly. And secondly, sir, as I said, each time it is for the individual member of the Assembly to consider about conflicts of interest or not. And sir, from recollection, there are an awful lot of members in the Assembly who in some shape or form have a perceived conflict. And I believe, as you and or anybody else in the chair as presiding officer have ruled on that matter in the past. And generally, sir, it is a conflict of interest enjoyed, if that's right, shared is the word I'm looking for, sir, by many. And then, and so therefore it's a matter for, I believe, so as long as the declaration is made, members have in the main continue to debate on that, and that is the rules of this Assembly. I don't note Senator Mesnick's comment in the chat, but that's the position, sir.
Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. Sorry, forgive me, I'm having trouble with my internet access today. So part of the question has been asked. Can I ask the Chief Minister, does he see any moral conflict of interest or conflict of interest that he would consider is inappropriate to have somebody who is a political advisor for a landlords pressure group within his cabinet? Thank you, sir. Sorry, Council of Ministers, sir.
Sir, I think, as I've understood matters, there are, first it's an open declaration. B, sir, if it was directly involving in matters in housing, which is not yet the case, sir, then that would be rectified. And C, sir, there are all sorts of things that all members participate in as part of their voluntary role, or I believe voluntary role, so all roles they do in serving the community, whether that's involving engagement with unions, whether it's involving engagement in voluntary areas, environment, etc., sir. And that goes across the piece and is part of the rich community we serve, sir.
Supplementary, Deputy Ward?
No, thank you, sir.
I have Senator Ferguson, then Deputy Taddy, then a final supplementary. No more time on this one. Senator Ferguson.
Thank you, sir. Given that Andium, or the state, in fact, is the major landlord in the island, will the government require a review of charging for electricity and other services of all the properties in Andium, just to demonstrate that how charging should be made?
Sir, if I'm very happy to take that offline, sir, and have a discussion with the Senator just to understand how she means. If she thinks it's an exemplary service, sir, then obviously very happy. I'm sure something can be issued on how it's done. If she thinks there are issues, sir, I'm very happy to have that raised through me to the appropriate person to investigate, sir. I believe the particular instance has arisen due to slight complexities in dealing with things like common areas and switching over from the old metering system. But I'm very happy to have that discussion with the Senator.
Supplemental, Senator Ferguson?
Yes, thank you, sir. Sorry, it's fairly simple. I can't judge, for instance, on the degree of overcharging that there might be amongst the whole of the population of rented properties. And, you know, we need some statistics before we start, you know, holding up the finger and sort of saying, oh, you've deliberately tried to sort of deal with downtrodden renters and so on. We need some facts, some statistics, and where better to start than with Andium?
Well, there must be a question here, Senator.
Well, yeah, that was it. We're better to start with. We're better than to start with our own property.
Where better than Andium, Chief Minister?
Now, sir, and now I understand the point. I do absolutely agree with the Senator, sir, that essentially before one starts bringing in regulation that applies to 100% of the of an area, we do need to have the statistics that state that we have a problem that we're trying to address. And if it's a 5% problem, then sometimes there are better ways of dealing with that than through regulation. If it's a 50% problem for the sake of it, then obviously you do need to regulate, but we do need some data to back that up in the first instance. I'm not necessarily applying that to the area of landlords, but in general terms, that would seem to make sense, because otherwise we regulate for everything when actually there's not necessarily the need, sir, and that obviously has a cost to islanders, not just taxpayers, sir.
Deputy Talia?
Thank you, sir. The Chief Minister really does know how to pick his assistant Chief Ministers, doesn't he? Now, does he think that the behaviour displayed by the two assistant Chief Ministers contravenes Article 5 of the Code of Conduct, paragraph 5, which says that elected members should at all times conduct themselves in a manner which will tend to maintain and strengthen the public's trust and confidence and integrity of the states? Does he think the behaviour has strengthened the public's trust and confidence in the states? And can I apologise, Alexa just seemed to go off in the background, but even Alexa doesn't know about that.
Chief Minister.
Sorry, sir. I didn't know we were allowed to promote private brands or products onto the state's website, onto the state's broadcast, sir.
We're certainly not allowed to answer questions.
Is this where we say? Sorry, sir. I was going to attempt to say, Alexa, please can you order 200 cans of whiskers, sir? Right, sir. The point I would make, sir, is that in relation to the deputy's overarching comment, I've been consistent in looking at issues when it's arisen with assistant ministers in the past and in the present, sir. and as you will be aware, having been the subject of two issues relating to the Commission for Standards, one of which was upheld and one of which was obviously not upheld. And so, in terms of consistency, both those were acted on very swiftly because they arose. This instance here is something that took place something like 18 months to 2 years ago. We've heard, sir, from the, it appears, sir, to be de minimis. I've been assured, sir, that the inspect is regularised to the satisfaction of the inspectors, and so I do know there is a discussion happening with the Commission for Standards, and until that conversation is completed, sir, that's really all I can say. But to date, sir, I think in terms of breach, I do take any comments and complaints that I receive about any minister, assistant minister, or indeed any politician very seriously, and I do try and apply an even hand to how that is considered. I hope that's been the case to date, and I do try and deal with it as objectively as possible, sir, despite sometimes people not seeing it that perspective, but I do generally try and treat them objectively, sir.
Supplemental Deputy, yes.
Yeah, it was a bizarre answer. He mentioned that there were discussions going on with the Commissioner for Standards. The real question is, has the Chief Minister referred this issue to the Commissioner for Standards? Because it seems to be a prima facie breach of paragraph 5, and if he hasn't, why hasn't he done that?
In essence, my understanding is that the individuals are in the process of self-referring, sir, and on that basis, there didn't seem to be the need for the action to be taken, sir.
Final supplementary, Deputy Sullivan.
Thank you, sir. And it concerns the appointment of assistant ministers, I suppose. Does the minister not consider that greater detail should be asked of potential candidates for assistant ministerships to see if they're under investigation for financial irregularity or in this case tenancy problems? Is the time come for a greater attention to detail about who we're appointing to be assistant ministers?
Sir, I think the point I would say, sir, is that I'm not entirely sure that there should be any greater standards applied to assistant ministers than there are to state members. And so if the deputy is suggesting that perhaps there should be greater clarity of all members as to effectively a CV, for example, that gives full background and gives any issues similar to the ones that the deputy is referring to, I'd be supportive of that, sir, because I think actually a kind of plotted CV which could then be published, etc., gives backgrounds of the various people in the Assembly, I think would be very useful to the public, sir. So on that basis, I'm very happy to see if that can be implemented, sir.
Very much. Then we come to question 7. The Deputy Morell will ask the Minister for the Environment. Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. Given that the Jersey Trees for Life website states that currently the law in Jersey relating to tree protection is quite inadequate and the resource and motivation to uphold what is in place is lacking, will the Minister advise of any progress to date in strengthening the legal protection of trees, and will he provide an approximate date as to when he will lodge proposals to amend the relevant laws?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. I'm grateful to the Deputy for his question because it gives me an opportunity to correct the misstatement there of lacking of motivation. The increased improvement in protection for trees is one of the priorities of myself, of Deputy Gila, as his membership, the scrutiny panel, will recall. I signed a ministerial direction in January 2020, an updated one in October 2020, on 28 amendments to the planning building law. Most of them are procedural, technical and admin, but 3 are very significant: conservation areas, biodiversity and protection of trees. The latest update I had is that I will be seeing a draft to enable me to lodge that in July this year. Unfortunately, it is correct that I have not yet seen that draft, and I'm informed that there are considerable drafting delays in the system due to pressure on the drafting facilities for both COVID legislation and a huge chunk of laws regarding Brexit. So my expectation now, I'm hoping that is not a long delay. September, therefore, lodging in September 20 this year. I'm hopeful of, but I'm afraid it's not an easy business, because the change to the law will be empowering. There's a lot more work to do after that, which I was very grateful for the Environment Scrutiny Panel bringing amendment number 21 to provide £300,000 worth of resource in the government plan, which will enable the work on in terms of the tree survey, definition of trees, species, and exemptions and issues about diseased trees and so on. There's a lot of complex matters which need to be in place, and that is why I'm suggesting the law changes will have an appointed day provision to enable, when all that work is done, to be able to implement and achieve full implementation of a much better regime to look after trees during 2022. That is the best expectation I can have. I see it as an absolute priority, particularly with climate change.
Minister, I have to ask you to bring your answer to a close.
Thank you, sir. Finished.
At least 40 seconds over the normal allocated time. Supplemental, Deputy Morrell.
Yes, thank you, sir. And I thank the Minister for his detailed answer. But does the Minister have any mechanism currently through which he can understand the scale of kind of trees being felled in Jersey at any given time? By scale, I mean the number of trees being felled or destroyed at any given time in Jersey. Is that something he's currently able to monitor?
No, I don't get that information. What I do know are the things that led me to the decisions I made was, first of all, the loss of listed trees, which was truly shocking. The planning system obviously needs improving to make sure that it doesn't happen anymore. And of course, anecdotally, I do get a lot of complaints throughout the island. People are very sensitive to trees, and so I don't have quantitative information, so I'm sorry.
Deputy Truscott.
Thank you, sir. And sir, sometimes I believe we overcomplicate matters. Does the Minister not agree a simple permit system would more than adequately do the job? Sir, if you lived in Vancouver, for example, and wanted to fell a tree, you would apply for a tree removal permit for every tree that had a diameter of 20 centimetres or greater, measured at 1.4 metres.
Sir, I had no intention of proposing that we implement this in an over-bureaucratic way. The planning law change will simply, I propose, will simply bring trees into the scope of development. It would certainly need the sort of permit system that you've described. I'm familiar with one. I personally operated it in Alderney, where a tree is 18 inches circumference and so on. It's straightforward to do, but I think we need to, so it won't be over-bureaucratic. But that's why I mean we need time to put all those details in place, and that's why I gave the answer I did on the time.
Deputy Truscott.
Yes, thank you, sir. All I wanted to say, sir, I'm disappointed that it's taking so long to get legislation put in place. Will the Minister do his utmost to progress matters?
So I absolutely share the Deputy's frustration, and you know what. We're desperate for law drafting resource. These planning law strengthening. As a member of the planning committee, there will be most of those changes he will want and benefit from. But I just cannot seem to get the progress on law resources. I think some of it is due to COVID. The department has had at its worst lost 50% of its staff to do COVID work, so there has been disruption. But I do share the frustration, and I'm going to keep my foot on this all the time, so it's really important.
I have questions noted from Senator Ferguson, Deputy Doublé, Conor Thompson, Brillard, and the Deputy of St Martin. Then final supplementary. I can't take any more than that. Senator Ferguson.
Thank you, sir. Given that I understand that the planning department has no individuals with landscaping experience or qualifications, and that they tend to ignore the green backdrop zone in St Brellard's, for example, what steps will the Minister be taking, apart from the legislation, to ensure that they will improve this?
I think so. In Amendment 23, the whole set of action, sorry, 21 to the government plan, there was a whole set of actions and outcomes there, and the Senator is absolutely right. There does need to be make sure that the planning team is actually geared up with the skills and knowledge to do that. At the moment, I think I'm open to I'm hopeful we might be able to get agreements with external organisation or partners to help us do this. But there is a resource issue, but that resource was in place as a result of that amendment. But yes, I think the Senator is right that we have to. That's what I meant. Why there's more to do than just pass laws. We have to get the mechanics in place in a workable, practical fashion.
Dr. Ventral, Senator?
Well, yes, I'd just like to know that the planning department will follow the decisions of made by the states. For instance, in 1967, 2011 and 14, and the planning department ignores them. It's that sort of approach. We must.
I'm sorry. Is the question, will the planning department follow the decisions of the Assembly? Because we really do have to focus on your question.
Yes.
Very well.
The quick short answer is yes. And the new island plan will help them do that. So if the members agree to those proposals to strengthen those things that the Senator's talking of, green backdrop, etc.
Thank you, sir. Could the Minister please describe what a tree protection order is and how it can be applied? So is it something that a landowner applies for? Is it the department that applies for it? Or can a member of the public that is aware of perhaps a tree nearby, can a member of the public apply for a tree protection order?
Yes, thanks to Deputy. Yes, we don't have very many trees listed. That's a shame. But nonetheless, the trees that have been listed have been proposed by the department. Some of those, I think, are due to survey work where or knowledge of a tree at risk due to development. But we are very open to members of the public to actually highlight those trees that require it. They will have to go through some kind of assessment, and we would use the IHE arboriculturist to help us advise on that. But we don't do enough, and the tree survey in progress in Amendment 21 will help us do that and do more.
Yes, please. Just a brief one. Could the Minister just describe the criteria whereby a tree would be whereby a tree would be subject to a tree protection order?
Wow, that's a toughie. Oh, well, it depends where it is. I mean, I think if it's an urban tree, very much a specimen tree in healthy condition, and it really adds amenity to the area, which is otherwise not available, I think that would really be significant. But equally, if it's causing damage or damaging drains or infrastructure around the place, then those will be negative. So there's a whole suite of factors. Could I undertake to provide the Deputy with the criteria in writing subsequently to the hearing, sir? Sorry, to the Assembly.
Thank you. Thank you.
Constable Brard.
Thank you, sir. In a similar vein to the previous speaker, a Jersey oak acorn, so was planted on March the 20th, 1934. That's some 87 years ago, 3 days ago, at Overdale, by the President of the Committee to commemorate the opening of the hospital. Will the Minister, sir, ensure that this magnificent tree receives maximum protection? It has no protection whatsoever at the moment.
Well, that's a difficult question, sir. I have to admit, I'm not aware of this particular tree, and I think I'd be wrong of me to give a particular commitment on it without knowing so. But I will undertake to check that out and see, what the situation is and what its future is.
Supplemental comment?
Yes, sir, and likewise, as the previous speaker mentioned, the process of protecting trees is extremely complex and not apparent on the planning website. Would the Minister once again confirm that he will make the process somewhat easier for the public to implement tree protection?
Yeah. Well, so I think that we've got a dilemma here. At the moment, the procedure is complex, which is one of the reasons why there's not many trees that have been listed, because one has to go through all sorts of complex procedures, and there is appeal opportunities and everything. What I'm proposing in the planning and building law changes, if members go with it, is a much simpler system. So I'm a bit reluctant to pump a load of resources in, because the longer term way of doing this will be better. But as an interim arrangement, because I've already said we probably won't be able to get these new arrangements in place until 2022, I'm happy to do as the CONITAR requests.
Deputy Mr. Martin.
Thank you, sir, and I share the Minister's enthusiasm to protect the environment.
Does he agree with me, sir, that it's fine to have new laws, but to do the job properly, you need officers with delegated powers to prosecute offenders?
Yes, and of course the deputy. We had several questions on the subject, and I've been quite open about this. That the enforcement team has been badly depleted, and there is a backlog of work. I think with what I'm asked by the office told at the moment is that the one government IHE model will has or should realign some resources to be transferred internally to strengthen that team. But there's no beating around the bush. I've been frustrated because I want to find, and I've asked the Director General for appointment of short-term temporary contract resource to help us get rid of that backlog. There's nearly 300 cases. And I'm very frustrated that so far the system has not been prepared to allow it to release those resources to enable to get this job done. I'm sorry to say, but that's the open situation.
Supplementary, Deputy Sir Martin.
Thank you, sir. And I understand the Minister's frustration with his officers, but will he agree with me that it's Environmental Protection Department that needs to be taking on this work, and he has officers at Howard Davis Farm that may also need strengthening if we really are to protect our environment and the countryside?
Yes, I think to be fair to the officers at Howard Davis Farm, they're having to take on some of these major responsibilities from the planning team, which, as I said, has not only been depleted, but has had a massive increase in workload and lost skills as a result of the target operating model. But their work, indeed, with Brexit and fishing has just gone off the scale. So, I've been, look, the deputy knows that since I've been elected, I've been banging on about the need to resource that environment department properly, and it's never happened. And I will keep at it until the end of my term.
Well, final supplementary, Deputy Morrell.
Thank you, sir, and I'd like to thank my colleagues in the Assembly for their supplementary questions. Given the situation the Minister has described in terms of lack of resources and law drafting time, could the Minister confirm whether he has given any thought to the possibility of signing a ministerial order that would give blanket protection to mature trees over a particular size, as Deputy Truscott suggested, perhaps 20 centimetres, as we see in Vancouver? And particularly an order such as this, has he thought about it, particularly in areas such as built-up areas? So he could just sign a ministerial order protecting trees in built-up areas. Has he considered, sir?
Sir, well, I haven't, but my immediate response is I think I would be very doubtful whether the law would allow it. That's the need. The simple change that I need to have is that the felling of a tree becomes development. If that happens, then I could do such a thing. I would be, but then I will go back and not get him a legal opinion. But my view, I'd be very surprised if that can be done under the law.
Very well. As mentioned to members, we've now finished 7 of the questions on the question paper, and we've got through more than 2/3, I think, of the time available to us. There are 22 questions in all. So possibly questions for ministers who are to answer in questions without notice. It may be that supplemental questions can be kept to a minimum, but I may bring that to members' attention. Question 8, Deputy Owls will ask the Minister for Social Security. Deputy. Has the deputy indicated, the deputy's absent, has the deputy indicated someone else to ask the question? No. I'm told. Yes, I think in the circumstances, as we understand the deputy's rule, that's not an inappropriate way forward.
Thank you, sir. Shall I carry on?
Yes, please.
Thank you, sir. I can ask the Minister, will the Minister advise how long it takes on average for overpayments made to those on income support to be detected by the department in cases where the detection is not prompted by the claimant informing the department of the change in their circumstance?
Minister?
Thank you, Deputy. And I'm sorry, but it's not possible to provide an average figure for the time taken to detect an overpayment where the income support claimant has not advised the Customers and Local Service Department of their change in circumstances. Thank you.
Supplementary to that?
Yes, sir. Can I ask, so is there a possibility of knowing what the range of time is, so the longest time and the shortest time, and the consequences of that?
Sir, no, I can't answer that question. The officers would have to go into every single case, and it doesn't give a timescale of how far you would like to go back. So the range, it should be every claimant who gets a letter are asked if any circumstances change. They have 14 days to notify the department, otherwise it kicks in a range of possibilities to the claimant itself. Sorry about that, but that's what it is, sir.
Thank
you, sir. The Minister will obviously know that the longer it takes for these issues to be discovered, the greater issue it can cause for both the department and the claimant in resolving it. Does she think that anything needs to be done to assist the department in preventing these sorts of mistakes being made, or at least discovering when they've been made as early as possible to prevent further issues arising? And what sort of things does she think would help the department in reducing this problem?
Well, there are many ways. I say the majority of claimants do inform the department as soon as, say, their hours increase, or even they got a job, adult children move out, get work, or even stay at home and get work. All these things, the majority are very good at. I can't think of one single thing. The department has, we get anonymous phone calls for different reasons, which, you know, will result in people being found out that they have maybe done something wrong, or they think they've done something wrong. It will all be looked into. It's always looked into, sir. And 9 times out of 10, there is a good reason why, say, somebody else might be staying in the house. But if they haven't informed us and the reason isn't right, it does affect the claim.
Supplementary, Senator?
No, thank you.
Deputy Sutton. And then final supplementary.
Problem with my mute. Sorry. Whoops. Right. Is it not the case that? Oh, I've got a terrible echo here.
Well, we can hear you quite clearly, Deputy.
Okay, I'll try and plough on. Is it not the case that because we pay income support a month in advance, that is automatically, when there's a change in circumstances, there's either an overpayment or an underpayment, and the Minister must have some record of what those overpayments are, and could she reveal them today, especially since if there is no overpayment, then the staff are directed to arrange repayment as soon as possible.
Yeah, the Deputy points out a very good way we pay income support in advance, so nobody has to wait for months for their money or even borrow their own money like Universal Credit. There was a written question, I think from Deputy Higgins in the last Assembly, and the roll up in the last 5 years was around about 3 million. So people, and it happens because people start work. If you're on a claim, you're not working, your circumstances don't change. The majority of those people, nothing changes. Their claim is fine. They don't get any overpayments or underpayments. It's when people are doing part work, part income support, and it's about telling us as soon as possible the way they get paid. And as I said last time, sir, the majority of people, if they get paid an extra £100 last month and they've got £100 from us, they quite willingly pay that £100 back straight away. Thank you, sir.
Is it not the case, supplementary, if I may, sir?
Yes, yes, Deputy.
Is it not the case that the repayment has to be set at a reasonable level? And increasingly nowadays, it's set not at a reasonable level, but at a level to reduce the overpayment as quickly as possible, which can, and in some cases does, cause some hardship.
So again, and that is the good thing of being a smaller island, and we know the clients, we talk to people, we know exactly what some can repay. The minimum is normally £3 a day out of their benefit. Sometimes it can go less than that, and that amount has not changed since income support was introduced. Again, I have to emphasise, if these have been long payments, some people have got thousands of pounds that they weren't entitled to. So they have to pay them back. We do look at the circumstances, but again, that money that comes back will help another family. Thank you, sir.
If I could I get the Minister to address the question, especially around that the emphasis has changed from easy repayment to repayment as quickly as possible. Has that change occurred?
Well, the Deputy has just made a statement, and he made that statement in the original question. I've got no evidence of that, and if the Deputy has, can he bring it to me and we can look at it? Thank you, sir.
On a supplementary, Deputy Ward, do you have a sound supplementary on behalf of Deputy House?
Yes, sir. Really, to go back to the original question, there were a minority of cases, we've been told, where the overpayments could be tracked, but we don't have statistics on. Can I ask the Minister whether, because it is a minority, it would be a good idea to get some data on that? And just finally, so it was also a consequence of an answer that about the repayment money of a previous question of £3 million. Can the Minister confirm that that money is not lost as it's returned from previous year's payments, that it goes back to the department, or does it go back to central funds?
I didn't say it was a minimum of cases that were on an average. I said we can't tell the average of every case. The money that comes back to a certain point, it comes back into Social Security, but when it's a debt, it is the debt to the Treasury Department, yes.
When we come to question 9, that Senator Moore will ask the Minister for Treasury and Resources. Senator.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister explain under what circumstances, if any, Revenue Jersey is able to continue to request payment of Jersey tax when a person has left the island to reside in a country which has a reciprocal tax agreement with Jersey and provides its new immigrants with a 4-year overseas income exemption?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Certain Jersey-sourced income, principally pensions, other than the state's old age pension, and income from property, is taxable in the hands of non-residents. Tax reliefs are available to non-residents who have a low worldwide income, whether or not they reside in a country which has a tax reciprocal agreement. It is important to recognise that double taxation agreements are only a mechanism whereby jurisdictions agree the allocation of taxing rights between them. In some cases, this may mean that particular types of income may be taxed in both jurisdictions. In some cases, the income will only be taxed in one jurisdiction. Finally, the domestic tax law in the other jurisdiction will be relevant. If the person is not considered to be resident in that other country for the first 4 years, then they will not be able to attain benefits under a double tax agreement. If a non-resident needs help or assistance in respect of Jersey tax charges, they can approach Revenue Jersey for help. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary, Senator.
Thank you, sir. And noting the final point made by the Minister there, and I won't go into the detail, but I am not clear on some of the facts that she has portrayed in her answer, as the reciprocal agreement with New Zealand that was signed in 2010, I believe, clearly states that with regards pensions, remuneration paid to an individual who's a resident of a party, therefore New Zealand, in consideration of past employment shall be taxable only by that party. So I would contend some of the facts that she has given. However, the supplementary question is, does the Minister consider it reasonable that Revenue Jersey should have claimed £8,000 in overpayments over a period of years and refuses to respond to that person for over 9 months, and refuses to repay the sums that they have claimed as overpayments?
So, as the questioner will know, I can't possibly respond to any personal tax situations. Thank you.
The question is, does the Minister consider it reasonable that Revenue Jersey cannot respond to a person who has tried to contact them for a prolonged period of time and they have not received any response for over 9 months?
Well, so if the person in question emails me, I will make sure they'll get a response, but I can't discuss any personal tax details of any person. Thank you.
Well, we come to question 10 that Deputy Ward will ask the Minister for Infrastructure. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. At that exact precise moment, I lost my question. Got it back. Thank you, sir. May I ask the Minister, will the Minister advise how much of the funding allotted to Liberty Bus in the government plan has been allocated to date, and what assessment of any such spend has been undertaken given the easing of public health restrictions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. The government plan, sir, provides COVID-19 response funding of up to £2 million for additional bus operating contract support payments in 2021. It covers the period during which emergency restrictions are expected to remain in place. The effect of the restrictions has been to reduce bus ridership levels to a level below that where the bus contract is viable. It is likely that expenditure in 2021 will be below this budgeted sum. The usage of the bus service during the first quarter of the year has not yet been fully reviewed, and to date, no payments have been made. The 2013 bus operating contract places the revenue risk on the operator rather than the government. For the service to break even, a certain level of passenger demand is required. Ridership since March 2020 has fallen way below the level of passenger demand necessary for the service to break even and is unlikely to recover to 2019 levels during 2021. The shortfall in fare income is being made up through additional funding as provided for within the government plan, allowing services to continue operating and employment to be maintained. Previous COVID-19 response payments covering the period May to December 2020 totaled 1.021 million. Thanks, sir.
Supplementary, Deputy.
So yeah, I thank the Minister for that quite long answer. The question was about the plan and what's been allocated to date from what's been put in the government plan for 2021. I'm not sure that number was there. And can I confirm whether or not the bus company were given money from the furlough scheme for any of their staff who may have been laid off or not working during the pandemic? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. So the monies for 2021 has yet to be determined. Nothing has been paid for 2021 as yet. For 2020, as I've mentioned, was 1.021 million. It was a double win for us actually, that rather than have them on the furlough scheme when staff being laid off, it was decided to keep all staff employed, and we would subsidise the bus company up to a certain amount. So that is what we've done, and that is why the bus company is still vibrant. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise members and indeed the public when the bus company will be reverting to its normal timetable?
That's an excellent question, sir, and I wish I knew, but we don't know where COVID is going. Hopefully later in the year is an optimistic view from myself. I would dearly love it to see back up to normal levels, but we are still in a COVID situation. People are taking extra precautions, which is only right and proper, sir. But I say as soon as possible, I would like the bus service up and running as normal. Thanks, sir.
Supplementary, please, sir. Will
Yes.
the Minister please ensure that he has discussions with Liberty Bus and brings members up to speed with those discussions, because it seems to me that the island is opening out and we should be providing services sooner than later. Thank you, sir.
Indeed, sir. My officers are in regular contact with Liberty Bus, sir. And say as soon as it's we get the green light to bring service up to normal, we will do so. Or as soon as customer demand is there, it will be brought back to normal. So the precautions are still being taken. People are still wearing masks on the buses. So I say precautions are being taken, but I would love to see it up and running as it was in 2019 as soon as possible, sir.
Final supplementary, Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. Can I ask the Minister to confirm that none of the money being given to Liberty Bus to maintain the service is being used to make a return to the parent company in some form of guaranteed return to the parent company from Jersey Bus as part of their contract?
Not to my knowledge, sir. Obviously, they have a lot of their buses on leasehold, which must be paid off. But as far as I'm aware, it's just to keep the company afloat, sir.
We come to question 11 that Senator Pallett will ask of the Minister for Economic Development, Policy, Sport and Culture. Senator Pallett.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise what action, if any, he has taken to implement paragraphs A and C of Drinks Promotions P105/2020 as adopted by the Assembly on the 6th of October 2020, and in particular, whether in light of the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on the hospitality industry, businesses will be permitted to offer and advertise drinks promotions until the 31st of December 2021 without risk of prosecution?
Thank you, sir. Can I ask that Deputy Morrell, who has delegated responsibility for licensing, take this question, please?
Thank you, sir. Following the adoption by the States Assembly of Parts A and C of Deputy Ash's proposition in 2020, the Department entered into correspondence with the Bailiff and Attorney General. In his response, the Attorney General noted that he planned to make a representation to the Licensing Assembly under Article 9 of the law in response to Part A of Deputy Ash's proposition. As the Assembly may be aware, Part C of P105/2020 has requested the Minister to develop a framework, possibly an amendment to the 1974 law, to give the States Assembly control of licensing policy decisions. The Department is assessing the best way in which to meet the requirements of Part C and aims to bring this to the States Assembly for consideration as agreed.
Supplemental, Senator Pallett?
Yes, please, sir. On the final part of the Deputy's answer, can the Assistant Minister advise the Assembly either verbally now or in writing by the end of this month details of the framework he'll be using to bring forward amendments to the 1974 licensing law by the 31st of December 2021 as requested by P105?
Thank you, sir. I can tell the Senator now that is still being worked on, as I said in the first part of my question. So the timeline to bring those elements to consideration for the Assembly is the end of the year. And that is the deadline we are working to. So in that respect, we are still working on it, and we will do so in time to meet the requirements of Part C.
Deputy Ash.
Thank you, sir. Would the Assistant Minister agree with myself in that as part of this, that we do in the future need to have an overall review of the whole way that alcohol is priced, including the way it is structured by the breweries?
Thank you, sir. That is an interesting question, but it is not one that I necessarily share the same view as the Deputy on. I'm happy to discuss with him his views on that, but at the moment I do not see in the same way.
Supplemental, Deputy Ash?
No, that's fine. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Samaria.
Thank you, sir. The Assistant Minister has already referred to the Licensing Jersey Law of 1974, of which Article 9A provides that the Licensing Assembly, in deciding whether or not any application should be granted, shall have regard to the interests of the public in general. Given that the decision as to what is or is not in the public interest is currently...
I'm afraid you've been cut out, Deputy. We can no longer hear you.
Sorry, sir.
Yes, your question finished with the reference to Article 9A of the law, but then you went blank after that.
Perhaps I could repeat then. Yes, the Assistant Minister has referred to Article 9A of the current law, providing that the Licensing Assembly, in deciding whether or not any application should be granted, shall have regard to the interests of the public in general. Given that the decision as to what is or is not in the public interest is currently a matter for the Licensing Assembly as opposed to the States Assembly, could the Assistant Minister perhaps elaborate on what he envisaged or how he envisages the framework to improve the situation being proposed, and in particular whether he envisages that some form of statement of licensing policy will be part of that framework?
Thank you, sir. It is too early to say to give a description of that framework, but I would envisage such a statement being a part of it. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary, Deputy St Mary?
No, thank you, sir.
Final supplementary, Senator Power.
Yes, please, sir. The states made a decision on the 6th of October last year to allow drinks promotions to be allowed up until the period of 31st of December 2021. How has the Assistant Minister conveyed that message to the hospitality sector in light of the serious damage that they've sustained during this pandemic? And what comfort is he giving them that they will not be prosecuted because of that decision that the states have made?
Thank you, sir. I believe it is not my position to give comfort to anybody in regard to prosecution, because that is a matter for the Attorney General and the Licensing Assembly. And as such, questions about the drink promotion aspects of, or Part A of Deputy Ash's proposition should be referred to the Attorney General and the Licensing Assembly.
Sir, can I just come back on that? The Assistant Minister has not answered the question as to how he's communicated with the hospitality sector.
Yes, very well. That is a point that was in the original question. Yes, is there any answer on communication with the licensing trade?
No, sir. As it's a matter for the Attorney General, I have not communicated with the hospitality trade on that matter. Thank you, sir.
Very well. We'll come to question 12 that Conor Tarbison-Haley will ask the Minister for the Environment. Conor Tarbison-Haley.
Well, thank you, sir. Will the Minister provide a timetable for the public inquiry in respect of the proposed redevelopment of the Ann Street Brewery and Mayfair Hotel sites?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. At the present time, I'm discussing the terms of reference for the planning inspectors for the inquiry for these two developments, and it would be my intention to publish the terms of reference and to take that forward. Once the inspector has been appointed, the inspector will be decide and publish the timescale inspector plans in accordance with requirements of the Planning and Building Public Inquiries Jersey Order 2008. They are entirely responsible for that. My intention would be that inquiry would have an opportunity to consider the draft island plan, which is due for publication on the 19th of April. I think that draft island plan is a material consideration in the matter. Thank you.
Please, sir. The Minister hasn't given much in terms of the timetable. I mean, what month this year does he expect the inquiry to get underway? And when would he expect there to be a conclusion to the inquiry?
Right, well, it's difficult, sir, because under the law, of course, the inspector, once the inspector is instructed, the inspector has the duty in the law to set the timescale and has the responsibility for running the inquiry. But of course, there is a mobilisation time. That process, of course, can't start until the terms of reference to the inquiry have been drafted and ready. I think myself that will be done within a month. And then after that, you've got the assembly time for the inspector, probably a minimum of 4 weeks, might be 6 more, and then the inquiry time and then the time to report. So I'm afraid public inquiries are not short processes, which is why not many of them are called.
Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. Would the Minister advise the Assembly as to what matters or what facts or new facts came to his attention to motivate him to call these public inquiries into the Mayfair site and the Ann Street Brewery site?
Thank you. Good question, sir. Well, certainly, of course, it's a material development, 475 new residential dwellings in that area. And of course, I am conscious of the fact that the law requires that where application, the Minister may call in, where there is a very significant development that has a major effects on a large number of people. I think in the Norfolk Town area, that is the case, meets those criteria. And I think the new issues arising are the issues raised as part of the St Helier character appraisal and the island plan work, which has identified issues such as open space, amenity space, the size and the quality of the dwelling units, and all these things, and particularly the availability of community facilities. That area of town at the present time is very severely short of open space and amenities, and a development to put in to put in an additional 475 units in that area is quite significant, and therefore those issues need to be, in my view, looked at in great depth.
Supplementary,
yes, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Would the Minister clarify to the Assembly as to whether he had received any information or had any conversations with either individuals or groups or concerned groups that raised this matter in his mind and therefore helped convince him of the need for these inquiries? Thank you, sir.
Not in any systematic way. I certainly didn't have any direct lobbying. I do remember reading some press reports, and part of my regular procedure in my weekly meetings with the regulation team is to go through the applications list and try and identify anything which may meet the criteria. So I couldn't say I was not influenced by anything I'd read in the newspaper or what, but I don't recall I had any direct lobbying. No, I think one has to operate independently and objectively. I can tell the Deputy that I had considered others, but which were reasonable sized developments, but I decided against on advice from the officers, but there was this was a matter of which the advice was entirely positive that this is definitely appropriate for the planning inquiry.
Senator Mezek.
Like I said, that the Minister mentioned the north of St Helier, and he'll be aware of the humongous development currently going on the Le Mosrier site, and also another huge one planned for the Play.com warehouse site. Does the Minister understand the frustrations that some people will feel that he takes action for a planning inquiry for a development from a government-owned housing provider, providing homes at below market value, which we desperately need more of to try and tackle inflation in the housing market, and going out of their way to provide open amenity space and for premises for Autism Jersey? Yet this standard doesn't apply to some of the private sector schemes in the area that, when push comes to shove, are ultimately about cramming as much in there as possible to make money for their shareholders. How does he address those frustrations that some of us feel that well-intentioned developments have these obstacles put in their way, whereas other ones don't?
Well, obviously, I think thank you, sir. I think that there's in the planning world, it's the applications and the nature of them that are subject to scrutiny and decision making, and not the applicants. The identity of the applicants is immaterial. But of course, the public interest is a matter that gets taken on board as part of the planning inquiry process. So I have to accept that it's not I'm not saying that the situation is perfect. One has to make the best possible reasoned judgment when calling in a matter for an inquiry. I can recall there have been issues where one gets criticised, and that goes with the planning territory, I'm afraid. My overall concern is a bigger one. My overall concern is that all the developments in the town area, particularly in the north of town area, which is, I think, is taking a huge amount of development, we need what is necessary is the community facilities and the open space provision to go with it. And that is why I put so much emphasis on the new draft island plan that will, I think, put in place a framework for policies that will help those decision making to achieve that. I'm afraid that, you know, it's only a framework. The only way out for this is the states to act and provide those facilities of open space and community facilities, which that part of town has lacked for so long. And that means, sorry, but that needs other interventions other than mine.
Supplemental.
Yes, please. The Minister referred to the public interest. So does he accept that it is in the public interest to support provision of housing that's being delivered for a below market value that will have an impact on holding back inflation in the private sector, and that perhaps, whether it's in an island plan or some other mechanism, having some sort of framework that promotes those sorts of developments is necessary because of the impact it will have on the housing market, and perhaps a different approach required to the bigger private sector developments that are taking place that make precisely no contribution to affordable housing.
Well, as a principle, sir, there's no question that that we want to see more affordable homes. But I think if that means that we cram in high density homes which are too small, poor quality, without proper amenities and without proper open space, my personal view is that because those buildings are there for a long time and people, you know, we create that environment that it's not, you know, people have to go their whole lifetimes in, we should get it right. And that's why I put so much emphasis on the draft island plan, because I'm very positive about the draft island plan that there will be some very, very major opportunities coming forward from the object plan to do some real things about affordable homes, particularly on state-owned site, because I think they are one of the biggest sources, and the detailed proposals that are going to be published on the 19th of April. In the meantime, just blanket approving, going with things and not placing proper processes in place, I think is not the way forward.
You're muted, sir.
I think you're muted, sir. I think I can't.
I am. Thank you very much. I have questions from the Deputy of Trinity and from Deputy Ward, and then final supplementary. No more questions on that. And I'll allow an extra, I think, for the various interventions so far, I'm intending to allow an extra 5 minutes, which means question period will end at 12:05. Deputy of Trinity.
Thank you, sir. Can I just question the Environmental Minister? As you know, we're very much looking at the centre of St Helier with regards to affordable homes, with regards to the facilities that the people that go there, with regards to well-being, health and such like. Is it not the case in some situations where if you look at the particular hotel being questioned and the inquiry you're asking, that perhaps this is something that we should be looking at, widen it further and perhaps moving some of these hotels out of St Helier and into areas which could be better used and therefore use the facilities that we have within the centre of St Helier. I'm very much in favour of making sure that the people that move in there, and especially with housing, that are very well looked after. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you, sir. I mean, in times gone by, the planning team, the planning minister, or it wasn't the minister, the planning committee, used to make those sort of judgments and try and factor in the state's estate strategy on the public with planning decisions. But obviously now the planning decisions are made independently, and the owners put them forward. And they are judged on their merits, and they stand or fall on their merits. Of course, it is open to the infrastructure minister at any one time to intervene in these property issues and seek to have discussions and negotiations with regard to acquisition, different uses, which of course go through the planning process. But that's open. That is always there. What one can't do, I don't think, is to say to a developer who puts in an application, well, you've applied for X, we're not going to approve this, but we prefer you to have Y. I don't think the system can do that, not without intervening and acquiring the property.
Deputy Trinity.
Thank you, sir. That's fine.
Debbie Ward.
Thank you, sir. I was just to ask the Minister whether he does recognise that a community centre was agreed for North of St Helier in the very first Common Strategic Policy, but has not materialised. And what's his view on the fact that often developments have been agreed with facilities that are there, such as Millennium Park, but they are so reliant upon small places that actually there is simply no more space unless more facilities are made.
So I entirely agree with the need for more community facilities and open space, and I take every opportunity to talk to my other ministers who have responsibility for state-owned land. I'm not a member of the Regeneration Steering Group, so I don't get to put that view there. And generally, I suppose I have to take no part in property decisions because I have to. My responsibility is the regulation of the planning process. But nonetheless, the draft island plan will, I believe, make quite strong policy recommendations, which will, I think, will help us get to a better place in this. But in the meantime, I absolutely agree with Deputy Sir that providing a site for that community centre is really essential.
Supplementary, Deputy.
No, thank you, sir. So.
Colleague Arbor St Helier, final supplementary.
Thank you, sir. And I make no criticism of the Minister for wanting to carry out the planning inquiry. That wasn't the purpose of my question, but it was to get some certainty for the hundreds of people who are desperate to have an affordable home. Some certainty about when these developments would be released for development. And the Minister's made several references to the island plan. Am I right in thinking that the inquiry will conclude before the states debate the island plan? Because, of course, while it's being published in April, it's not being debated until next year. And to add a further year on the delay in providing these affordable homes would, I think, be unacceptable. Does the Minister agree?
Yes, I do agree. My expectation and understanding is that a planning inquiry is enabled to give consideration as one factor to what's called an emerging planning policy. So yes, the expectation is the inspector will report before that but the draft will be out there. It will be an emerging policy. How much weight that's for the inspector is given to that factor is for the inspector to say, but I do undertake that report should be available before the states debate the island plan.
Well, we come now to question 13. The Deputy IA will ask the Minister for Economic Development, Tourism and Horticulture. Deputy IA.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise whether any inquiry will be held into Bet Index Limited, trading as Football Index, which had its operating licence suspended by the Jersey Gambling Commission on the 11th of March 2021? And if not, why not? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Once again, sir, Deputy Morrell has delegated responsibility for this area, so I'll ask if you could take the question, please. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The sequence of events leading to the suspension of the licence is a matter for the Jersey Gambling Commission, and so any inquiry is a matter for the Commission itself to decide upon. The Gambling Commission Jersey Law 2010 ensures that the JGC takes proper action to protect the young and the vulnerable, to ensure games are fair and to ensure that the industry is not a source of crime. Article 3 places a specific duty on the Commission for the general supervision of gambling, including in particular the supervision of providers of gambling services and investigation of whether any person is complying with, contravening or committing an offence under the enactment relating to gambling. The Commission is investigating the circumstances leading up to the suspension of that licence, and it is cooperating with the Gambling Commission in Great Britain to do so. I note that the matter is now before the English courts, and so it would be wrong to comment any further.
Well, supplemental, Deputy A.
Thank you, sir. Some members of Parliament are calling for a public inquiry into the collapse of Football Index, which has suspended operations and appointed administrators. This raises serious questions about the Jersey Gambling Commission, which saw fit to provide them with a licence. Should the responsibility of the Jersey Gambling Commission be taken over by the Jersey Financial Services Commission in regard to licensing of businesses engaged in the buying and selling of shares? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. It is interesting. In regard to the buying and selling of shares, if they are the buying and selling of shares in limited companies or similar entities, then that is currently a matter for the Jersey Financial Services Commission. If, as in this case, the model of the gambling in under that is of concern, as is the case with Bet Index Limited, creates a template that suggests to the players they are buying or selling shares, then it creates an interesting situation. And it is one that I wish to understand further about, as to understanding how the model that Bet Index were following was seen and understood by the Jersey Gambling Commission. That is a question that I would like to have answered personally. But given that this was a gambling provider and was seen to be a gambling provider, I don't think it would be appropriate for the Jersey Financial Services Commission to regulate that provider, because then there would be no clear definition between Jersey's gambling sector and Jersey's financial sector. Thank you, sir.
Well, we come to question 14. The Deputy Haggarah will ask of the Minister for Economic Development, Tourism, Sport and Culture, the Assistant Minister, I believe. Deputy Haggarah.
Thank you, sir. What consideration, if any, has been given to the inclusion of all sporting groups, including private clubs and associations, in the development of the Inspiring Active Places strategy?
Thank you, sir. Once again, I'm able to delegate this to Deputy Raymond, who has responsibility for sport. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for the question, Deputy. The Inspiring Active Places strategy is first and foremost to replace and improve our publicly owned sports and leisure facilities. All sporting groups, private clubs and... Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
All sporting groups, private clubs and associations that currently use government facilities are included in discussions about the proposals and the designs. The overall aim is to improve opportunities for everyone to be active and to ensure the current stock of government-run centres provide sporting facilities that all islanders can have access to, and which are modern and will inspire them to play sport and lead active lives. Some sporting groups and private clubs are self-contained and have their own facilities. While they're not included in the strategy, broader discussions are always ongoing, and it is envisaged that public and private provisions will continue to complement each other and evolve. Going forward, we will work towards the shared goal of making Jersey one of the most active and healthy populations in the world and for people to visit. The strategy also recognises we need to review other existing public sports facilities, including our extensive outdoor facilities. IAP represents the start of a journey to manage the government sporting assets effectively and will ensure a plan is in place to maintain the public sporting realm. Thank you.
Much supplemental, Deputy Haggarah?
Yes, please, sir. It is interesting that the Assistant Minister has said those that currently have facilities owned by the government. However, some sports have had to find facilities outside of the government because they didn't have or lost the facilities which were owned by the government. So therefore, someone like netball, for example, lost the facility that they had at Les Canaves and had to move into the private sector. So therefore, sir, what conversation has happened with netball, and are they going to be provided the facility that is attuned with the facilities that they have at present, as this is probably the most used sport in relation to female population? And even if it is not, one would hope that we are looking at all sports and not just those that are actually currently on our own government facilities. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. I can answer that very, very succinctly. The leader of netball has been in constant conversation with me. We are on the same wavelength. We're about to, if subject to the money that's already in the government plan, to put applications in with regards to providing a permanent home for netball, which will be in the, let's say, the east of the island or towards the east of the island. And everything is on song to meet her requirements. And if you speak to her, Deputy, you'll see that she's very keen to follow the route that we're going and very much appreciate the work that we have been doing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would the Assistant Minister not agree that the current Inspiring Active Inspiring Active Places strategy has just been released, built on a previous report carried out by the same consultant in 2018, and within that report in 2018, they did in fact consult with a wide range of groups, including key government officers, but also importantly, consultation with key stakeholders, many sports associations and clubs. So would you not agree that actually there's been a great deal of consultation all the way through this process, and as much as it may not be specifically mentioned in the current strategy, there is a great deal of consultation that's carried on in the lead up to producing this strategy?
I totally agree with you, Senator. Sorry, sir, I totally agree. As you know, you were as you know, you were very much part of the Fit for Future strategy, which started in January 2016. You were the existing sports minister, and I very much hope that I'm carrying on very much what you've tried to do. Unfortunately, due to COVID and a few other problems, it has slowed down, but this is an opportunity now, which you were very keen to support and very keen to proceed with, that we're carrying on with. And I can't thank you enough, bearing in mind that it has taken so long to be able to do. But we do have money in the government plan, and we do have facilities that we can move forward now that this report has been given. And we very much look, hopefully, with your support in this as well, moving forward.
I have to ask you, I'm being extremely lenient, but none of that answer was through the chair rather than the first sentence. It was all direct, personal at the questioner, and standing orders require that answers are given, and all speeches indeed are made through the chair. So instead of you, it would have been the senator.
Apologies, sir.
It becomes important particularly when matters become perhaps somewhat charged with emotion. It's very important that people maintain that standing order and address the chair. Very well. Supplementary, Senator.
Well, it's not so much a supplementary, so it's going back to the original question. Really, I just want the Assistant Minister to agree that, because he hasn't as yet, that there has been an awful lot of consultation with private sports clubs and associations all the way through the process of producing this strategy. And as much as there may not have been in the production of the final document, the document itself is based on a great deal of consultation that's carried on over a great deal of time.
That I would agree with, sir. I can't argue with that. That's which comes back down to the work that was done by the previous people in charge of this particular aspect of where we were going with the Inspiring Active Places.
Well, I have a question from Deputy Doublé, then a final supplementary, Deputy Le Hégarard. Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. And it's great to hear that the Minister is consulting with all these different groups. And I wanted to ask him, the Assistant Minister, if a gender-sensitive approach is being taken to this strategy. I wonder if he might get some data from the survey once it's closed to ensure that what we are putting in place is equal for men and women, boys and girls, for the different types of sports that different genders like to access, and indeed looking at different ages to make sure that there's plenty for children in there as well.
Thank you, sir. I very much support everything you've just said, and it's interesting that with the people that we're talking
everything
with,
that the deputy has just said. Not everything that you've just said, everything the deputy
has just said. It's a learning curve, sir. Sorry. Yes, we have been speaking to some 44 individual sports and associations, and we have involved the feminine side to it all, because what we want to do is to provide every aspect of sport to everybody, male, female, old and age alike.
Supplementary, please, sir.
Yes, Deputy.
Yeah.
Thank you. Would the Assistant Minister agree to look at the work of, I think it's Sport England or Sport UK, and they've identified specific barriers for women and girls entering sport? And could he take that on board to make sure that if there are any barriers in Jersey, that those are removed to encourage full participation in sport and exercise?
I would certainly take that on board, sir. And in my old days of being back in the UK, I very much dealt with UK sport. And fully appreciate the work that they're doing and would take on board everything that the Deputy has just said. Thank you, sir.
Much final supplementary, Deputy Hegarach.
Thank you, sir. Following on from Deputy Doublé, sir, I would like to ask the Assistant Minister, what data has Jersey Sport in relation to how the population is divided in relation to various sporting activities, so that we ensure that across the all sports, that all are catered for? Because it is concerning that the headlines normally are a new stadium for football and rugby, and let's please consider all other sports. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yes, sir. I would just make an aside comment there, and the fact that rugby and football is played by the feminine side and is very much part of any of the discussions we have. And I would take on board exactly what the Deputy has just said, sir. And we make sure that the feminine side is very much looked after. And especially if you look at the sports that we're involved with, there is a huge involvement with regards to the best way of moving forward, so that everybody in the island can benefit from the work that we're doing. Thank you, sir.
But there's probably time for another question. Deputy Tadier will ask the Minister for Infrastructure. Deputy Tadier.
Thank you, sir. Following the adoption of paragraph A of P 107/2020, will the Minister advise whether the decision to introduce single fare transfer bus tickets from the 1st of January 2021 has been implemented, and if not, why not?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I can confirm, sir, that Liberty Bus began selling transfer tickets for the same price as single tickets from the start of operations on 2nd of January 2021. This is extensively advertised on the Liberty Bus website, sir. Yeah.
Supplementary, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. So just to confirm, that means you can go from any place in the island now from point A to point B on the Liberty Bus network for the price of a single ticket. Is that correct?
Indeed, sir. If one needs to catch more than one bus to reach the destination, you simply purchase a transfer ticket, and the ticket is valid for 1 hour from the time of purchase. Show the transfer ticket to the driver on. Sorry. Show the ticket to the driver on the transferred bus, and you pay the same price as a single fare. Apologies for the phone.
Very well. Perhaps we'll try Deputy Alves, although she's not here. Someone will ask a question on her behalf. Number 16 to the Minister for Infrastructure. There may be time for question and answer. Yes, very well, Deputy. Yes, Deputy Tadier.
I was just checking, we don't get supplementaries for other people on these, do we?
You don't, no, but and also there's no supplementaries, there's no final supplementary in the preceding question, Deputy, because there are no other members asked questions. So we move into 16. If you are, there may, as I say, there'll be a minute or two left for a question. Or, well, it's been offered by Senator Mazek, if you'd like to pose the question, Senator.
Thank you, sir. Further to the answer to written question 100 2021, will the Minister advise whether the primary school estate review in St Helier has commenced, and if so, what are its terms of reference?
Thank you, sir. The primary school estate review has commenced. The terms of reference have been agreed by Justice and Home Affairs and Children, Young People and Education and Skills departments. The terms of reference have been provided to the Education Minister, and I will provide a copy to States members if requested, sir.
Supplementary, please, sir.
Yes, Senator.
Can I ask if anything is contained within that will require them to consult with the elected representatives in St Helier, both at states and parish level?
Not to my knowledge, sir, but I need to get back to the deputy on that.
If not, would he consider putting that in?
They have been drawn up, sir, but I don't have a problem with the local representatives being consulted, sir.
Very well. Question 17, Senator, you will ask that of the Minister for Children and Education. There may be a time for a question and order. Deputy Martin, you have a point of order?
Yes, sir, and I didn't bring it up when Deputy Ward stepped in to ask my question, because I think Deputy Ward only had one oral question. Senator Mezek stepped in to ask the other Deputy Alves question. Does that mean that well, it does mean, so he's got 3 oral questions that he's asked today. Just asking if that point is correct.
Well, I'm not sure that I'm treating, well, I know I'm not treating the last question as Senator Mezek's question. He's merely asking it for a member who is, I understand it, been taken ill. But I will review the position so that for the next time we deal with questions of this nature, I will have a definitive view. But I'm not sure I can help further at this point.
Thank you. So just thinking that somebody who didn't have an oral question didn't have a problem with the question being asked, but somebody who didn't have an oral could have asked it just as easily. Thank you.
Yes, very well. Senator, allow a little bit more injury time. So there's about 1.5 minutes left for your question to the Minister for Children.
Thank you, sir. I'll speak it quickly. Will the Minister state what efforts, if any, are being made to ensure that there is an effective post-COVID-19 recovery plan in place for children and families equivalent to the work being undertaken around the COVID-19 economic recovery plan?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. There is work being undertaken to assess the impacts of COVID in the case of situations such as uptake of services within health. We know as well, whilst assessing the impact of COVID, we know that there are issues around the wider health incomes, wider outcome of health behaviours, and we know that there has been a greater demand on the CAMS service. So officers at the moment are working on a complete review of population needs and the recent COVID impacts, and will be presenting papers to ministers in the near future. This initially will have a wellbeing and health focus, and that will apply to groups such as the elderly, LGBTQ+ community, and children and families, as there is a wide scope in order to respond to COVID.
Supplementary, if there's time, sir.
I'm afraid there's not, Senator. That's taken us right over our time. So we now move on to periods of questions without notice. And the first Minister to ask questions is the Minister for Home Affairs, Deputy Tadier.
Thank you, sir. The Minister will be aware that the recent documentary focusing on Ola Garen and also on the removal of the former Chief of Police, the suspension of him, was a subject of that documentary and has put the matter back into the public mind. Would the Home Affairs Minister state whether he considers it appropriate to issue an apology to the former Chief of Police, Graham Power, and to former Senator Sivray for the way in which they were treated by the government of the time?
Sir, I have no reason to believe that individuals that involved in the situation at the time were not treated fairly and properly. And if that is the case, then there would be no reason for any apology, sir.
So does the Home Affairs Minister accept that the evidence on which the suspension and the advice on which the suspension was based, indeed the advice was not to suspend, because it would from the law officer, and that the Home Affairs Minister at the time was found to have lied both to the Committee of Inquiry and to the States Assembly? Does he not think that is sufficient grounds for an apology to be issued to at least the Chief of Police?
I have no reason to believe that an apology is required. The deputy spoke of evidence that will therefore be a legal matter, and if advice was given that such an apology was appropriate, then no doubt it will be given. But I have seen no advice to that effect, sir.
Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to thank the Home Affairs Minister for ensuring the for helping engage with the community police officers that have been allocated to the different parishes. It's a good initiative. But I would like to ask whether the Home Affairs Minister arranged for any introductions to the community police officers with their elected representatives, and particularly parish and district deputies. And if not, could you explain why not?
I'm very, very careful, as should be any member of the Assembly, not to interfere with the operational arrangements of the State of Jersey Police. I am aware that the community police officers have made themselves known to the parish halls, to the schools and other community groups, and I have no doubt that if any member of the Assembly wishes to meet with the community police officer involved with their particular parish, that could easily be arranged. But you know, it doesn't have to come to the minister. It just needs a call to the police officer involved, and that will be arranged. They're not difficult to find. If the deputy goes to his parish hall, he'll see a notice up there with the individual's direct telephone number, the community officer's complete direct telephone number, and that officer will be delighted to meet with him and his fellow deputy. I have no doubt, sir.
Supplementary, Deputy Moreau?
No, thank you, sir.
Senator Messer.
Thank you, sir. And following on from Deputy Tadia's question, which made reference to the documentary on BBC4 last week, could I ask the Minister if he has watched that documentary and if he has, what lessons he's taken from it?
No, I haven't seen it, sir.
Well, sir, in that case, would he undertake to watch it, and will he be prepared to deal with the issues that are going to be raised subsequent to the issues that were highlighted in that documentary being brought back to public consciousness, bearing in mind that we're now 3 years away from the Independent Jersey Care Inquiry report having been published, and rather than let it fall off the agenda, members will want to push these issues back up and have confidence that the Minister is still treating those issues seriously.
So the Independent Care Inquiry, as far as I'm concerned, did, and we should be mainly concerned about children. You know, sir, there are many issues that were raised, but as far as I'm concerned, the major focus should be on children and their future. And this government has done so much to try and avoid the mistakes that have been made in the past, and that is my focus. That is absolutely my priority, and I'm sure the priority of this government as well, sir.
Deputy Sir Martin.
Sorry, sir, I hadn't indicated I wanted to ask a question.
Oh. Well, then I shall check back and see if I've written you down for somebody else. Deputy Pamplin.
Thank you, sir. Picking up on what the Minister said earlier in question time period about Prison Me No Way, he talked about it being, and I'm paraphrasing, but redefined. Could you just outline what he means by that and how this charity will continue in the future? Thank you.
Yes, no, I can't tell the deputy how the charity will continue in the future. Prison Me No Way has done some exceptional work over the years. But it doesn't mean that the message and the work that can be done cannot be delivered in a different and perhaps better way, and that is what my department is currently examining. But the work that they have been doing needs to continue because it's an important piece of work. But the detail of which I will bring to the Assembly in due course, sir.
Supplementary, Deputy Pamplin?
No, thank you, sir.
Deputy Ayer.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise whether the State of Jersey Police receive priority on the vaccination programme? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
So, as the Deputy knows, a panel was formed to consider any deviation from the original advice, and the State of Jersey Police did apply for being placed as a priority in phase 2 of the vaccination programme, but that was declined, and that has been accepted by the Stretford Jersey Police, and of course they will now form part of the age barriers, the age definitions as they come to pass. So.
Supplementary, Deputy Ayo?
No, thank you, sir. That's fine. Thanks.
Deputy Higgins, you indicated the desire to ask the question 3 times, and I acknowledged it on the first one. So, your question, Deputy Higgins. Deputy Higgins. Deputy Higgins.
Thank you, sir. The Home Affairs Minister isn't prepared to apologise to former Chief Officer Graham Powell. The care inquiry on pages 772 and 773 repeat how he was suspended by Andrew Lewis, who lied to the States. Andrew Lewis lied to the Napier body. He lied about a number of things, sir. What I'm saying is an injustice has been done here, and yet this minister isn't prepared to offer an apology to someone who should never have been suspended. Even the law officers said he should not be suspended unless the full Metropolitan Police report was in existence. Will the minister now apologise to Graham Powell?
So the deputy expresses clearly a very strongly held view, but I have no reason to. I believe I have no reason to make an apology in this area, sir.
Supplementary, sir.
Yes, indeed.
Does the minister believe that officers who acted potentially illegally, who certainly didn't give him due process, should be dealt with themselves? Should they be disciplined?
I'm sorry, sir, I don't understand which officers the deputy is referring to.
There were a number of people in the States at the time who were part of the suspension and the decisions for that. Should they be disciplined at all?
So I have no evidence to suggest that that would be appropriate, sir.
Senator Mezek, you have a second question.
Yes, thank you, sir. In answer to a previous question, the Minister rightly said the focus has to be on children, and I certainly agree with that. Does the Minister accept, though, that an essential part of safeguarding for children is for those who are being abused to have confidence in the institutions out there to protect them, and have confidence that when they raise complaints that they will be treated seriously and not ignored? And would he therefore agree that the issues which were raised in the Storyville documentary by survivors of abuse themselves, that the lack of trust in the past was part of why many of those abuses were able to carry on, is something that needs to be treated seriously? And would he endeavour to watch that documentary, hear the concerns that they put across themselves, and address it in some form in the near future?
Sir, as I also said in the answer to the earlier question, this government has made a commitment, and I think has proven commitment, to put children first. We are investing millions of pounds in early years help. We've established the Children and Families Hub. We've redesigned CAMS with the intention of making a significant investment in the service in 2022. We have a Children's Commissioner, a Children's Minister, which the Senator held himself, a Children's Rights Officer, and a Care Commission to regulate and inspect the services for children. We have made great strides following the care inquiry, and those strides, as long as I'm part of this government, sir, will continue.
Supplementary, please, sir. Although it didn't really address my question, I was, of course, involved in lots of those things he's mentioned, and I'm proud of them and believe they're the right thing to do. But does he not accept that the judges of whether that work is successful or not are not those who are implementing those actions, but those who are on the receiving end of those actions? And what will he do to give everybody confidence that those in our community who are in a vulnerable position will be able to have confidence that the institutions there are genuinely open to them to hear their complaints, and how can he demonstrate that there has been genuine progress on that front since the care inquiry and since the events that were portrayed in that documentary, and how he can get feedback from those who are concerned that that's the case, rather than pointing out all the good stuff that he is involved in doing, that I think misses the point a bit.
No, I think that the senator makes an absolutely fair point, but this is not exclusively a role for the Home Affairs Minister, and not exclusively a role for the enforcement officers. This is why his former department, Sites, has got so much to do. That's why there's got to be, as I mentioned in answer to an earlier question, it's cross government. It's not merely enforcement. It's working with all the agencies to make sure that this massive investment we're making in our young people and to protect our young people is effective. And of course, we've got to have communication from young people themselves to make sure that they are content with the routes and the initiatives that we are taking. That's very, very important. But it's across governments, across agency initiatives which you've got to deal with the situation, not just the police.
Well, that brings the time available for questions to the Minister for Home Affairs to an end. The next is the Minister for Infrastructure and the Connaught St Helier. You have a question.
Thank you, sir. I want to ask the question with notice that was narrowly missed previously, question 18. Following the recent announcement that a town hopper bus service trial is to start this year, will the Minister provide further details of this proposal?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I've accepted the request from the Chief Minister, sir, to arrange for a town area bus service to be introduced. Funding is being made available for the rest of 2021, and my officers are currently working to investigate potential funding options through Treasury to determine the best way of securing funding for continuing the service into the period beyond the end of this year, sir.
Supplementary, please, sir.
Yes, Control.
Does the Minister plan to consult with anyone, with either elected members or the parish, or indeed the public, the bus using public, about what form this town hopper trial bus service should take before it is formulated? And when does he plan to announce the trial to the public?
Indeed, sir. It's been confirmed, but it's aimed at the service should seek to connect bus station with several key facilities, such as the General Hospital, Central Library, Millennium Park, and the markets. It's intended to offer a frequency of every 15 minutes, but say the routes, type of buses, and any consultations are yet to be determined, sir.
Yes, thank you, sir. Sir, in September last year, and in response to my oral question 214/2020, the Minister indicated there would be a new revised contract going out for tender for the maintenance of the rail walk in St Brelard. Can the Minister confirm that this has actually happened, and if not, why not?
Yes, I believe there's been several extensions. Obviously, we have COVID, there's been several extensions, and I believe it's happening in October, sir. New contract.
Supplemental, Deputy Josper.
So can you just confirm, Minister, that it won't be happening this side in the first quarter, it'll be the last quarter of the year? I'm rather disappointed with that, I must say, sir. Could the Minister make it a priority for the new contractor to maintain the railway surface and get a tree planting scheme in place as a matter of urgency? Thank you, sir.
Yes, all of that is happening, sir. There is quite a bit of works going on by several of the municipal companies putting pipes and cabling underneath the railway walk. So there is a delay. There has been some disruption there, but my officers and myself are very keen to remedy that as soon as possible, sir.
Deputy Atadia.
Thank you, sir. Having looked on the Liberty Bus website, it says under that there's a transfer ticket available, but it doesn't say that how much the transfer ticket costs, or indeed that the transfer ticket is the same as a single fare. So can the Minister undertake to talk to Liberty Bus to make sure it's explicit on their website that a single ticket is the same as a transfer ticket, and that it can take you anywhere in the island if you need to change your bus?
My information is that it's listed under the fares, and that up to date 500 people have used the service, sir.
So the Minister, yeah, that's not correct, and the Minister can check that, sir. But my supplementary question is, why wasn't a press release given from his department about this? Because it seems that he and Liberty Bus want to keep it secret, and this is good news that we should be shouting from the rooftops to get more people on the buses across our island. Does the Minister not agree?
Well, it's been advertised by Liberty Bus, which is a private company, and yes, it began selling transfer tickets for the same price as single tickets from the start of operations from the 2nd of January. And my information is that around 500 transfer tickets have been sold up to the middle of March 2021. So people are aware.
We have a question from Conor Thompson, Martin.
Thank you, sir. It's my understanding that at Ballazan last year, at least 3 hemp crops were destroyed due to mould and insect infestations from the glass house. The dump was allowed, but it is my understanding that this should not have been allowed without first testing the THC content, and then the failed crop should have been mixed with coir or other immutable substances, i.e. wood shavings, to then further dilute any issues. If this did happen, this is an unacceptable oversight by the producer and the government. All facilities have to comply and have their own waste disposal protocols approved by police and government legislation. My question is, could the Minister look into this, please, and let the Assembly know if the correct protocols were followed when the crops were destroyed, and if not, why not? And can he assure the Assembly that in future strict protocols on the procedure of destroying hemp/cannabis crops will be adhered to? Thank you.
I was unaware of this problem, so more than happy to look into it. We just handle, obviously, the composting of green waste and nothing more. But I was unaware that that came to us. But more than happy to look into that, sir. But as I say, the green waste and pathogens are really sort of superheated by a bacterial process. But more than happy to look into that, sir.
Thank you.
No supplementary then, Conor Thompson, Martin?
No, thank you. I'll just wait to hear what the Minister has to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Does the Minister intend to reopen Broad Street as through traffic, or will he be supporting the Constable St Heliers suggestion that it should remain closed? Thank you, sir.
I will be opening Broad Street, sir, when I'm advised it's safe and proper to do so. That was my statement from the very beginning when Broad Street was closed. I'm aware of the Constable St Heliers' wish to have it remained closed, but I will stick to my word and open Broad Street when I'm instructed it's safe to do so, which hopefully won't be too far into the future, obviously depending on COVID. Should the Constable St Helier or any other member wish it to remain closed, then they can bring a proposition to that effect and we'll debate it in the Assembly.
Supplemental, Deputy Ayer?
Nothing further, thank you, sir.
Down to Ferguson.
Well, yes, Deputy Ayer has almost taken my thunder. Who is the Minister relying on for the advice about opening Broad Street? Is it Stack or the government?
It's predominantly Stack.
Thank you.
Well, Conor Thompson, Brillard.
Thank you, sir. There's been
much discussion with regard to cycle parking provision at Portlet.
Excuse me, sorry, Conotop, somebody's crunching paper. I'm suspicious you'd like a sweet wrapper. I have no objection if it's off screen, but perhaps but that noise is interrupting. So if we could stop. Thank you, Conotop, please ask.
There has been much discussion, so with regard to cycle parking provision at Portlet, could the Minister confirm that he'll support this provision for the benefit of visitors and local businesses alike?
Indeed, sir. We've been corresponding with the operators of the cafe on the beach and various other people. My officers are well aware of it, and it would be desirable to have a cycle rack and cycle park there, given the funding. And also a bus service provision, bus stops, bus shelters would be delightful down there. But it's that may be into the future. But I would like to see a cycle rack put there as soon as it's possible.
Supplemental, Conotop?
Sir, and in addition, sir, given that Portlet Bay is one of the prime bays often used for visitor presentation material, would he also confirm that rubbish bins will be provided for the use once again of the general public to be collected on the rounds of his rubbish collection team? Thank you, sir.
That's something we're also looking into, sir. People are asked to take their rubbish home with them, which sadly is not always the case. And I know that the proprietors of the cafeteria have been landed with lots of other people's rubbish. Again, that's something under discussion with my officers, sir.
Deputy Sullivan.
Thank you, sir. I don't know where it was, but I think I've heard or seen some documentation on the revival of the concept of a hopper bus in town, especially one that covers Overdale when the hospital is built. Can the Minister inform members what progress or lack of it has been made on this possibility in the last few months?
I'm not sure if the deputy was there when I answered last year, but basically, as described previously, that as far as we are at the moment. We're obviously in discussions with Liberty Bus, and to move this forward, we have funding for 2021 as an experiment, but nothing beyond. So everything is coming into place. It's been a long-held ambition, and the Chief Minister is also very keen to get it going, and has very kindly provided the funding for that. Funding for 2022 is something we need to get a grip of, but it's something we need to really progress to help people move around town freely.
And if I may, sir,
yes,
could the Minister elucidate on what type of hopper bus we're talking about? We're talking about an electric bus, we're talking about a green bus, we're talking about a free bus or a low-cost bus?
At present, sir, it will not be a free bus, although I would say 90% of the people using it will be using their senior citizens cards to gain access to the bus. But we can't do anything that would really impinge on the rest of the service. I don't think it will be an electric bus to start with, but it will be a Euro-friendly bus. Hopefully running on green diesel to start, but obviously we're looking into electric buses generally, and if we can assist with Liberty Bus, then we'd be more than happy to do so. The deputy will know we've had an electric bus over, or Liberty Bus has had an electric bus over previously as an experiment, and it's early days yet, but we hope to expand on that as soon as possible.
The Minister hasn't mentioned any timescales, sir. We're in Q1 of 21. He says he's got money for 21. What timescale has he got?
Within the next few months, sir.
Sounds a ballot.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, sir. A loan agreement was in place when the toilet block at Le Poulant was sold privately to a developer. Toilets have not been maintained at Le Poulant. Can the Minister assure me and assure the public that toilet facilities will be available at Le Poulant through the next coming summer season?
At Le Poulant, that was, I think the sale of that was before my time, sir. that's something we're very keen on, is toilet blocks and the provision thereof, sir. That's something that the team are looking into. We know that further down the coast there's not too much by way of toilets, and that's something that's being actively investigated.
So could he, I wonder if I could ask the Minister to answer the question, will he be providing toilet facilities at the Pullaunt this summer?
As I say, sir, that's not something I can commit to, sir, but it's something that the officers are well aware of, and it's something that's being investigated.
Well, there's time possibly for an extremely quick question from the Connaught Harbour St Helier.
Thank you, sir. Many people will be pleased with the resurfacing that is taking place on some of our island main roads, but would the Minister give an undertaking to accelerate the programme of resurfacing, as there are so many roads in the island which are uncomfortable, if not dangerous, to either drive or cycle on?
Minister.
I would dearly love to, sir, but we are subject to obviously funding. A lot of money has been diverted due to COVID, and as they say, we are where we are. There's lots of roads at the moment are being dug up for services, etc., gas, electricity, and telecom. So we can't really do too much until that work is finished. A few roads in town, but this is something I would actively like to pursue and have all the roads in the island in pristine condition. Sadly, that's going to take a few years to be come to fruition.
Well, that brings question time for this Minister to an end. We now have the Chief Minister for 15 minutes of questions. Deputy Pamplin.
Thank you, sir. As we reach these milestones of a year of dealing with the pandemic and the next phase are about to begin with the borders being reopened, can the Chief Minister reassure us that the lessons of last year and specifically over Christmas have been learned to put things in place so we're able to move to this next critical stage for Ireland's benefit? Thank you.
Chief Minister.
Sir, I think we have all the measures in place that we need. The crucial thing, sir, as we know, research, evidence and data changes on a daily basis. We continue to monitor on a daily basis, and we continue to take and consider the professional advice that we receive when we're making our decisions. I hope that answers the Deputy's question. We obviously remain cognizant of the rates on the island, but also what is happening around us, sir.
Supplementary, Deputy.
Yes, thank you, sir. And specifically, if escalation is needed, again, like we discovered around Christmas, quickly, is there the plan in place? Are there the staff available in place to do the vaccination rollout, continuing and testing at the borders and track and trace? Do we have the staff in place and a plan in place if needed when called upon?
So, short answer is yes.
Very well. We come to Senator Valois, who has a question for the Chief Minister.
Yes, thank you, sir. Could the Chief Minister explain or outline when the plan is to bring forward a business case for a new fund to be established as classed as the Infrastructure Fund, which was set out in the Government Plan 2021?
Sir, I believe the plan, it still remains intention to do that, sir, and to do that during the course of this year, sir.
Supplemental, Senator Valois?
Yes, supplementary, sir. There was a certain amount of funding that was established, central planning vote, I believe, that was agreed for this fund. Will it be in place prior to the end of the year or in the next couple of months? Can I have an indication in terms of timelines and therefore the requisite requirements and governance process around that coming forward, please?
Sir, at this stage, I don't think I can add to my original answer, sir. What I'll say is obviously with the handovers between the outgoing CEO and the incoming interim CEO, that will no doubt have had a slight impact on timing, sir. But the intention still, sir, as I understand matters, is that we do the piece of work during the course of this year, sir, and then it will come to council ministers and ultimately to members.
Senator Mezek.
Thank you, sir. Does the Chief Minister agree with the recommendation from the Employment Forum that minimum paid annual leave should be increased from 2 weeks to 3 weeks?
So I'm not going to comment one way or the other at the moment. It's the recommendations quite literally come out in the last few days, and it's with the Minister for consideration, sir. And at that point, it'll come up to council ministers and then to members, sir.
Supplementary, sir. When it comes to rejecting any requests to raise the minimum wage towards a living wage, the government usually say that they pretty much just do what the Employment Forum says. So can we take it as a given that the government will be doing what it usually does and just do what the Employment Forum says and be raising minimum paid annual leave from 2 weeks to 3 weeks?
So as I said, that is with the Minister for Social Security, and I'll wait her feedback, sir.
Thank you, sir. In October, I asked the Chief Minister about the progress that was being made by the Council of Ministers in purchasing the Le Cartillon 2 coin hoard. The Chief Minister at the time said he would put it on the COM agenda before Christmas, and certainly by in the beginning of the year. Has it been put on the agenda? What was the outcome of the discussions? Thank you.
Sir, I certainly recall, I now do recall the question, sir. It has been raised to me in recent, very recent days as well, sir. And indeed, sir, I've had some conversations both with the Treasurer and with other States members, sir, on the matter. I have to say, sir, I'm afraid my memory is lacking slightly as to what's happened. An awful lot's happened between October and now, sir, as to whether it did make it to the common agenda or not. I think in terms of obviously having had the spike, the issue, sir, I believe says that I believe the final valuation has been performed on that, and that there is, I believe, an agreed sum in place. What I do believe, sir, the only issue is just how to fund it. Just for the avoidance of doubt, sir, from my perspective, I'm extremely supportive of the finders, obviously, this matter being finally resolved, sir, and particularly and obviously the coin hoard staying in Jersey, sir. What I'll do, sir, is I'll go and get another update and come back to the Connotab within 2 weeks, sir.
Supplemental, Connotab?
Yes, sir. The hoard was discovered nearly 9 years ago, and a commitment was made that the finders would be treated similarly to what they'd be treated in the UK under what I describe as the treasure trove law. That law requires settlement within 3 years. It's been 9 years since the hoard was found. Can the Chief Minister commit to telling us when this will finally be sorted? Thank you.
So what I'll do, I will come back to the Connotab within 2 weeks with a timeline, sir, and then obviously I'll, in some shape or form, we'll get that into the public domain, sir.
Thank you.
Connotab and Sabia.
Yes, thank you, sir. There are a lot of rumours going around at this moment in time in the Thespians to say that the Arts Centre and the Opera House are going to be given to Andium for them to control and do whatever they wish for, and that shows in the future will have to go up to Port Regent along with a casino that's going to be there. Could the Chief Minister just tell us if this is so, and is the Opera House and the Arts Centre going to be given to Andium for housing? Thank you.
Sir, firstly, I've certainly not heard those rumours, and I do have some links into the arts world, and frankly, sir, not on my watch, sir. Thank you.
Right. Well, thank you very much. Because sorry, the supplementary, sir. Because yes. the Jersey Green Room Club and the art and the the amateur dramatics are really worried and concerned because they, in their own right, have worked very hard to preserve both these facilities. And the Arts Centre is fabulous for smaller shows. So the Chief Minister is saying that he definitely, this is not going to happen.
So all I can say is I've not been presented with anything along those lines. In respect of the Opera House, at the end of the day, the heritage and culture and long history of the Opera House, I think would absolutely mean you wouldn't want to do what's being suggested. In relation to the Arts Centre, sir, I absolutely agree with the comments from the Connaught Hub of St Saviour. The only comment I would make, sir, is I don't know if there's been something around. There have been, I know, calls for a cultural centre and things elsewhere in St Helier. In my view, sir, I think the Arts Centre is appropriately located. It needs investment, sir, part of which we are addressing, and it has my full support, sir.
Thank you very much.
Deputy Sullivan.
Thank you, sir. It's flown from my head. That question has flown from my head. Oh no, there we are. There we are. Yeah, the Chief Minister has committed himself to significant rises in the minimum wage. Is he prepared to do that on the way towards encompassing a living wage to replace the minimum wage that we currently have?
Sir, Council Ministers is committed to a living wage. The only difference we've had, sir, is on the timing. And my understanding, sir, is that there is a piece of work either poised to start or started within Social Security to look at the timing on that, sir.
Supplementary, if I may, sir.
Yes, certainly do.
The Chief Minister will be aware that I have a proposal for increasing the minimum wage lodged. Could he commit himself today to giving me an early response to that document, because I don't want to be scrabbling around on the last day. At least a week's notice would be useful if I'm going to organise myself properly to bring this about.
Sir, I know that the Deputy's proposition is being considered by the Minister for Social Security. I'll absolutely speak to her to get her to endeavour to give as much notice as possible in terms of responses, etc. On that, and certainly, sir, I very much hope it's not going to be in the last 2 days before the debate. But I'll speak to the Minister for Social Security, sir, and if there's any change in that, I'll come back to the Deputy.
Thank you, sir.
Senator Mazik.
Thank you, sir. Has the report from the Housing Policy Development Board been considered by the Council of Ministers? If so, what's the initial reception to it, and when is it going to be published?
Sir, it's recently been considered by the Council of Ministers. And the chair of the Housing Policy Development Board was present at that meeting and took us through it. And I'd like publicly to thank him and the other lay members particularly, as well as the political members, for their time on that. The intention, sir, it is subject to COVID in the next few days, but the intention remains, sir, I believe, to try and get the report published, hopefully by the end of this month. And I'm not commenting on the views of Council Ministers, although they were cognizant of the fact there's been a good amount of work that have been put in to produce the findings of the board, sir.
Supplementary, Senator?
No, thank you.
Any other questions for the Chief Minister? Very well, the question period is therefore closed. Is the adjournment proposed?
Yes, sir.
Very well, the Assembly stands adjourned until 2:15.